All right, hello, rockers, rollers, and metal maniacs. It's the Meister from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. I am so excited today. We're doing something really cool. I think you guys are gonna dig this. So today we are meeting. I got my buddy Jerm, who's been on the show before, uh, and we're gonna do a kind of a round robin little uh, chat with some professional musicians. We're going to chat about our favorite rare, obscure, underrated, overlooked albums. Some of our favorites, our top five, or thereabouts. I know lists are always hard for me. You know, I'd put a list together, and the next day I would completely change that list, whether it's the order or all of the albums. So anyway, but I thought it'd be fun just to kind of get a chat going about just some obscure albums, some things that you normally might not see and that are favorites of ours. So anyway, so we're gonna start. I'm gonna do a quick little intro with everybody that's on the show here today, and we'll just go in alphabetical order by last name. Starting off, I've got Karl Agell, who you may recognize as the lead vocalist of Legions of Doom and The Skull and Leadfoot, and of course was the singer of Corrosion of Conformity way back in the day on the Blind album. So Karl, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, good to see you. Next up, we got Al Barnes, all the way from cold England. From
Yeah.
Was a member of the a little band you might remember from Newcastle called Venom. Played with them back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Also played with Mantas from Venom, played on some of his solo albums, and was also in the band Accelerator. So good to see you, Al. How you doing?
Good to see you. Great to speak to you. Great to see all these guys. As
Yeah.
you say, very well, but pretty cold.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got Albert Rybka, lead vocalist of such bands as Category 5, X Acracy. I'm forgetting. There's so many bands. You're in so many bands. Like it's the list goes on and on. A lot of Chicago-based progressive, the core Manifold. Yeah, a lot of killer stuff. A lot of cool progressive and power metal bands. So good to see you, Albert, again. Thanks
Yeah,
for.
same here. Thanks. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this. Looking forward to seeing everybody's picks and seeing how I stick out like a sore thumb.
Nice. All right. Next up, we've got Chuck Sherwood, bassist and lyricist of the mighty Incantation. Also, of course, from Bloodstorm. He has a new band coming out here soon, or a new album coming out with a new band called Balefire, which is killer stuff. New tracks out right now. And I'm stumbling over my words, Chuck.
Good.
Occumancy, another killer band that you put together a while back, and some others as well. So good to see you again, Chuck. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, likewise. Looking forward to all this, Thanks
Yeah,
for having me.
yeah, this should be fun. And last but not least, Mr. Tony Truglio, of course, of the mighty Liege Lord. Also played with Helmut, also the Killer Ants, and upwards of Endtime as well. So good to see you, Tony. How you doing?
Cheers, guys. Good to see you too, man.
All right. So I thought I'll get the ball rolling. I'll start off. And as we were talking before we started this, just how difficult this is for me to put lists together. And I've changed once when we came up with the idea to do this, it took a long time. I went through my albums and trying to find some kind of more obscure things that I like, that maybe a little off the beaten path. And once I got a list together, then it was the hard part of trying to put it in some sort of an order, a top five, and I just couldn't do it. I changed it up until this morning. So I decided I'm just going to go in chronological order, instead of like which one's my favorite, because I can't decide. So I thought I'll just go in chronological order. So I'm going to start with, and everything I did, and this wasn't on purpose, just ended up being from the 80s. And the first one actually comes from 1980, and that is Ethel the Frog, old English new wave of British heavy metal band, which you don't see too often, and especially in the States, very tricky to find. It's one of those albums that I remember reading about it when I was a kid, when I really got into like the new wave of British heavy metal music. And this was a band that would come up a lot, and I could never find it here in the States ever. And for years and years and years, searching to try to find an album, it's not streaming. I don't think it's on any streaming platform. And I finally found High Roller Records released this, re-released it on vinyl a few years ago. And so I bought it from there. And it was a little pricey because of the shipping, because they're out of Germany. And I still can't find it in the States anywhere. And apparently it's now available on CD. It wasn't available on CD either, but apparently it's now available on CD. But I've always dug that, since I purchased it finally, because I'd see, you could find songs on YouTube, when they did, I think their first hit, if you want to call it a hit, was they did a cover of Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles. And that was like in 1979, which is on the album. It's the first track on the album. And at that time, that was, a lot of bands have done the, metal bands have done the Beatles, but at that time, like that was kind of a rarity for a metal band to do a cover of a Beatles song. And it kind of grabbed me, and it was interesting. I'm like, what is this? And then the album itself, I really dig, because for me, it's kind of that bridge between the 70s hard rock and metal. Even though it came out in 80, it's still that it has this very 70s rock sound to it. And I thought it was just a cool bridge, kind of between those subgenres of music. And yeah, I think, yeah, cool band that they only had the one album, and they had one single, which was Eleanor Rigby. And then they called it a day. And two of the guys went off and formed another band. I think I forgot Salem, I think it was the name of the band. But yeah, it really, they never really went anywhere, which I found unfortunate, because I think there's some really cool stuff on this album and really interesting. And yeah, so if you can find it, I'd say check it out. Yeah, I dig that album a lot. So I don't know, anybody a fan of the album at all?
I'm aware. I've never heard the band, but growing up in the UK, I'm aware that that it was a band. But it's like one of those sort of almost childhood memories. No, I wasn't. That's a kind of was. I was born in the late '60s, so at that time, and I used to get a little bit confused between. We've talked about this before. Between what was a band and was it a TV show? Were the real people? And I remember you just not really first off thinking like, is it a cartoon character? Is it a TV show, kid show? But never. I may have heard them. And when you said Eleanor Rigby, I think I have a really vague memory of that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's kind of holy ground covering the Beatles. It's like,
Sure.
I know Yesterday is possibly one of the most recorded songs ever, but it's a bold move. You stick your balls on the line covering the Beatles.
Yeah, especially as an unknown band, I think. And
Yeah.
and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe their name came from a Monty Python skit, Ethel the Frog, right?
So did-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it did. Yeah, from Flying Circus, right? Yeah.
Were they on one of the Metal for Mothers albums? Because I remember
Yeah.
the album cover. I, for the life of me, can't remember, but I remember listening to them as a 14, 15 year old. I can't remember what they sound like for the life of me, but I totally remember the name.
Yeah. I believe they were on the very first Metal for Mothers. I believe, I think one of their songs was on it. I don't remember which song it was, to be honest. But yeah, they were an interesting. Yeah, like I said, I think they're not real heavy. Especially that they're not Iron Maiden. But they have this. They were a little more blues based, I think, in terms of that. The new wave of British heavy metal. And yeah, for me, like I said, they kind of bridge that gap between kind of the English hard rock bands of the early 70s, and then the later, they kind of bridge that gap in a way, if there is a gap. But anyway, so that's my first pick. So so I'll just go in order of how I see you on my screen, if that works. So Albert, you are up.
Okay. All right. So I decided to take two different approaches to this list. I decided I would pick a couple of albums that were from more well-known bands, but are kind of their, dark horse albums, if you will. They're sort of underdog albums.
Nice.
And then my other selections are ones from bands that a lot of people probably haven't heard of and really should. So I'm going to start with the two from the more popular bands. The first one of which is from this little band out of Birmingham who, maybe a few of you guys have heard of. I don't know about everybody here, but they're called
Which
Black
which
Sabbath.
Which Birmingham we talking about here?
Birmingham, England. Yeah. So yeah, this little band, four guys called Black Sabbath,
They any good or
So, I am, admittedly, I've never been a fan of the Ozzy era. I'm more of a weenie metal guy myself. I'm really big into super melodic stuff, and so for me, the era of Black Sabbath that really caught my attention is the Tony Martin era, and so my personal favorite would be the third album that they did, which is Tear.
Cool.
So, um, you know, Tony Martin just has such, at least on album, I can't say so much from a live perspective, but just on album, hearing his voice, there's just so much power, so much range, and just this absolute emotive quality that I truly love. And I think he was a really solid lyricist too. This album in particular deals with all this Norse mythology, and so it's essentially like the only concept album by Black Sabbath, which is kind of unheard of for a band of their ilk. And I mean, of course, on drums you've got Cozy Powell, who, guy's just a beast. You hear his performance on a song like The Lawmaker. I love hearing songs where it's up tempo, but they're not relying just on, helicopter double bass drums. He managed to keep a really quick pace without having to resort to just, the constant beating like that. And and I think that some of Iommi's best riffs are on that album too. I mean, you listen to stuff like the Sabbath Stones. I think that song is just as heavy as anything from their early period. Just crushing stuff. And yeah, to this day, it's absolutely one of my favorite albums. And and it's kind of hard for me to pick one, just one from the Tony Martin era, because I think you've got four really cool albums and then you have Forbidden. Um, but but yeah, I think out of those four, if I had to pick just one, Tear would be it.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, I don't have that one. I need to explore the Tony Martin era a little bit more. I had an album years ago that somebody gave me, and I think unfortunately at the time, I just didn't appreciate it. I was into some pretty heavy stuff. I was really getting into extreme metal and punk. So for me, it was just too, it was too melodic, and it was like, I don't want this, but I've gone back and listened and like, oh, that's great stuff. But I got rid of the album, unfortunately. So I need to go back and revisit that era, I think.
Yeah. Well, and now's the time to do it because they just put out a box set with four out of the five studio albums that they did with him. So
Nice.
that would be the way to do it because, yeah, some of those albums kind of fetch a pretty penny online individually.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
I
cool.
hadn't realized. I mean, obviously, I know the Ozzy deal, Tony Martin, and I knew that, but I saw it was a meme the other day, and it was just a picture of all of the Sabbath singers or all the people who'd sung at any point in Sabbath over the years. And I was like, fucking hell, I had no idea. There was more people than it's on this screen now. And those guys, I'm like, I don't know who that is, man. And
It's wild.
those
Yeah.
weird sort of, people that sort of popped in and out. Yeah, were great. But yeah, he's got great pipes, Tony Martin. I think it was a great. And the obvious one would be Headless Cross to mention,
Oh,
And I mean, I just remember that at the was when MTV in the UK was sort of it was kind of happening, and there was I can't remember, there was a show on at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, and you kind of come in from the clubs, and that would be like, yeah, it's the Power Hour. It was called. It was an hour of
the Power Hour. Nice.
yeah, man, and we just sit there with some bad UK bad English takeouts, trying to focus on the TV and record it on the VHS. And but the Headless Cross was on rotation on that. And I just remember, like, the video. I've probably romanticized the video a bit too much because I remember it being epic, with the Headless Cross and the band backlit and the smoke machines and grasping meaningfully for nothing in the air kind of vibe. But yeah, great pipes, excellent call, man.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm a late comer to that too, man. I discovered it years. Huge Dio fan. Obviously, I love being an old person. I discovered obviously the early sound. So you kind of like, I go back to being a dumb kid and being like, I'm not listening to that. You know what I mean? And then later on, you're like, holy shit, man, this is good stuff, man. So it's just, I guess, we're kind of skeptical when a band changes so many members, but now that we're older and we've been those changing members in the band, it's like, it's normal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Excellent point.
Yeah, that's great. Nice. All right, Jerm, how about you? What do you got for us?
Well, first let me get my eyeballs here, but yeah, so the first one is also a new wave of British heavy metal band that's I think is severely overlooked. And in my mind, when I look up heavy metal in the dictionary, it should have a picture of these guys, and it's Grim Reaper.
Oh, right on.
These guys, when I was a kid, man, just changed my life. This is 83 See You in Hell, and then 85 with Fear No Evil. But when these guys first came out, man, that's when I was first getting it really hardcore into metal, and wow, they just, straightforward, no bullshit, straight up metal, and Nick Bocott, man, what an amazing guitarist. And I didn't realize that until I started. He does that Sweetwater stuff and does some lessons online, and then really going back and listening. That guy is just an incredible guitarist. Doing the tap and dive bombs, nothing like over the top, but just incredibly good, man. Just an amazing guitarist. And then Steve Grimmett's vocals, man, come on, what a
God rest him, man. God rest him.
What an amazing, and he did has such respect for, he did the Lemmy, he had all the health problems, and he's still just killing it, from the Grim Reaper stuff on to Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper. Just wow, what an amazing band. And I think they're severely, undercredited and overlooked. So that's my first one.
I remember getting that vinyl for like 50 cents at a flea market as a kid. Because nobody cared about, See in Hell or whatever. And I even went on to buy, was it Rock You to Hell?
Rock You to Hell, yeah.
I even liked that. I know people, by that point they didn't care, but I liked that one too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, great band, just amazing band.
Yeah. Millie just did her Wings of Angel festival for this past weekend out in the UK. I think she did.
That's right.
Yeah, they had Harry Conklin doing a bunch of the songs with them. Yeah. So if you're going to get somebody to try to fill in those shoes for Steve, that's a perfect match.
Yeah. And Nick actually went out there and played.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
it was all three of the original guys, just minus Steve.
Cool. Oh, that's really cool.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as
a nice guy as well.
Yeah.
Huge.
It was
a big guy. Dude. I'm not a tall guy. He's a big guy. Yeah. I met him a few times when he sang in Onslaught.
Oh, okay.
British thrash band.
Wow.
Yeah, back. I wouldn't like to pick the year.
Onslaught were awesome, man.
Yeah. Great band.
Didn't you, Al? When you were in Venom? Didn't you guys play with Onslaught?
Never on the same. We're touring at the same time, and met him a few times. We've never on the same night.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, as a quick side note, it doesn't mean anything. It's just sad. I actually set up an interview with Steve, and he died 3 days before the interview. Oh. And he had sent me a message telling me how excited he was to do the interview, and then I saw the news and I was devastated, like, oh my God. So yeah, it sucked. Yeah, it was a huge loss to the metal world for sure. Yeah, he was an amazing, and he was so friendly. He was so down to earth, so nice. And just a little bit of interaction I had with him, the back and forth emails just to set up the interview. He was very kind, very, very thoughtful, very gracious. Yeah, so yeah, may he rest in peace for sure. Well, thank you, Jerm.
I just had a memory. We played with Nige Rocket, the singer from Onslaught, and he had a band called Mirror Mirror, and they supported Venom in Primeval Tour.
Okay,
that's a weird connection.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
That was, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, very cool. Tony, what do you have for us for your?
Well, I don't have any records in front of me because they're locked up, and I'm limping like I've been stabbed in the leg with a spear. So I'm going to just pretend, and I'm going to give you an idea of what was available. So I did a bunch of lists because first, I'm 58 years old. Going back, I mean, as generic as the answer is, I think the Beatles were one of my biggest influences. But I didn't want to go back to like that 10-year-old me discovering Jimi Hendrix and all this. So I went a little bit in between of the obscure stuff and some of the things that warped my brain into never having a desk job, the metal albums that really really affected me to the point where, they changed my life. And a lot being on the East Coast. So I'm about 40 miles outside of New York City. I'm at the southern tip of Connecticut. And what was available, obviously, was some of the Metal Blade stuff. So some of the EPs, I picked a couple EPs that really kicked my ass. And when the first one is the Armored Saint EP, which was just, to this day, what a vocalist, what a vocalist. And what a bunch of nice guys. I was fortunate to be one of the few guys that were in the last three of the audition when Dave, who was an amazing guitar player, passed away. I was flown out because we were on Metal Blade. And I just remember sitting in the room, and I loved my singer at the time, but listening to John in a room, I was getting goosebumps, you know what I mean? And I saw him a few years ago. We did Up the Hammers right before 2019, and he still sounds amazing. I missed him. They just came around here, but if I get bumped in the hip, they were here last week, and I'll be in the emergency room, but I wanted to see them so bad. They're out here with Wasp. So that Armored Saint EP, the Metal Blade stuff floated out here, and the Megaforce stuff kind of was easy. It was about an hour and a half trying to find the stuff coming from the UK and from Germany in my area, because I wasn't quite in the city. And this town that I'm in, which I grew up in, is not metal. They don't even know who the hell Liege Lord is. So it came from the town. So that would be probably one of my first. And I guess they're somewhat underground. They never really broke to the level of the Metallicas and Anthrax. But what a band, man! What a great band.
Oh yeah, I love Armored Saint. They're incredible, and they're super. I mean, I've interviewed Phil, and his brother helped him. Phil is, no offense, Phil's terrible at technology, so his brother came over to set up Zoom for him. So I get to meet him as well. So I get to meet both of the brothers, and they were so kind and so funny and just down to earth and just cool guys. They were just really cool guys. Cool. Great band. Yeah, and that EP, that's smoking.
I remember seeing them. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Joey Vera's what a musician, what a kind-hearted soul too, man. Yeah. Super talented, the best ears on the planet,
Yes. What were you gonna say, Karl?
No, I was just saying. I remember seeing when I saw went to see Metallica on the Ride the Lightning tour. They're playing a club show, early days in 1985. Metallica, but it was Armored Saint and Wasp opening up, and I was like, holy shit, who's this Armored Saint band, And then I was just like, wow, what the fuck? They're amazing. And then I kind of laughed for the next band, Wasp, as they were, throwing raw meat at us and doing that shit, saw blade, crotch stuff going on. I was like, all right, and then of course Metallica at that time was mind blowing, but I was just really blown away. I wasn't really aware of Armored Saint. It was my first exposure, and I was like, holy shit, that guy can fucking sing, and that band's really good. So yeah, always like
My
high regard.
Yeah, my introduction was, and I can't remember it was obviously on TV, the Can You Deliver video, which is like, at the time I can remember thinking like, this is like Star Wars, man. I've seen it recently. It's not, but it's a fucking great song. And they didn't. I mean, I was aware of them, and they were in. There's a magazine called Kerrang in the UK, which came out of Sounds, and you'd see them in there. I'm not sure Am I Saint ever toured the UK, because if they had and they'd come to the Northeast, I went to see everybody if I got the opportunity. And then I just remember, seeing, the Anthrax thing with John Bush, and I was like, oh, that's that guy.
Yeah, great band.
Great, but and they toured the UK really, really recently.
Oh, nice.
And I think the only reason I didn't go, it was 2 weeks after Bloodstock, so I did the whole of Bloodstock this year. I was wiped out and really busy, and I had about 3 or 4 different people messaging me from the day or the day before the London show, like saying, "God, come on!" So it's one of those. It's just I wish I'd gone, but
yeah, I've never seen them live either, and I've always wanted to, because I've loved that band for years, and I've just never had a chance to see them. So I need to try to get to see them someday. Very cool. Oh yeah, great band. Nice. All right, Chuck, what do you have for us, my friend?
So we were talking in regards to like a lot of the new wave British heavy metal stuff, and I picked like they're in no particular order or preference really. I just picked 5 randoms and thought, I might as well just present them as I go. Parallax. So their 82 demoed Angel of Darkness. A lot of folks would probably remember like the White Lightning EP around 80. Kind of, this one has more of like that Dust Heart Attack feel, but by 82, at least in my opinion. And I don't know how else to really say. Like, it's only a demo, so listen to all of them. But for one of my favorite songs is Nemesis off of it. It has like a really killer doom feel to it and everything, and there's a lot of dead stops, wailing solos, and later like chuggy riffs, and it's really atmospheric. And yeah, give yourself 20 minutes and listen to the Angel of Darkness demo. It's worth it.
I never even heard of Parallax.
Parallax, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard them, but it was a long time ago, and they kind of fell off my radar. I'm glad you brought that up. I need to look back into that again. Yeah, there's so many great bands from that era that were just kind of lost to history in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it went totally under the radar for a lot of, even for myself for that matter. I started digging deep into trying to find like something of that genre, like, because I love my Angel, Witch, and Maiden and all that, obviously, but this is one that I think a lot of people just kind of missed at its time. And they just made a CD, I believe. I forget what label pushed it out, but it's all the demos on one CD.
Cool. Oh, so, great. Yeah. And I'm a sucker.
I don't even think they ever did a full length. So
okay. So really obscure then.
I'm hand on heart, I'm quite ashamed. I've never heard of them either, and I've got no excuse. I was here.
They probably live next door.
Yeah, man. Do you know where they're from geographically?
Oh, they're British.
I don't know. Do you know if in?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah, I'll check it. I was interested because I wonder if they were a London band that never really did the demos and never really got outside of London.
I have to admit I'm ignorant to it, but I don't recall.
Yeah, cool.
Nice, very cool. All right, thanks, awesome, thank you, Chuck. That's cool. Yeah, I need to look into that. Yeah, and I do remember them. I haven't heard them for years and years and years. I can't even remember what they sound like. It's been so long. Yeah, I got to check that out. And that's exciting if there's a demo, a CD demo that's new.
Yeah, I think they did like three or 4 demos max, and that's all on them now.
All right, nice. I'll check that out. Very cool. All right, thanks, Chuck. Karl, what do you have for us?
What do I have? So a lot of my stuff is just kind of based on criminally underrated or vocalists that had certain albums that should have been just taken to the next level, but that's all a matter of opinion, right? But so we just Legions of Doom / The Skull, we just played Heavy Chicago and shared a stage with the Crosses, which is basically Dan Kubinski from Die Kreuzen. That was this incredible hardcore band, I think formed 81, and their self-titled album in 84. There was an EP before that, and I think they re-recorded some of that stuff. This Die Kreuzen, or some people say Die Kreuzen, whatever. Self-titled album is just awesome. It's like this hardcore band that's delving into prog and gothic metal, and I don't know, just all kind of all over the place, and I just admire the guy because he's just his vocals are just unusual and a mixture of aggression and just a lot of charm, and I don't know how to describe it properly, but that's my background too. I came out of the whole hardcore punk scene originally, and then evolved into the whole crossover thing, with COC, and I was always a huge admirer of a lot of metal bands and stuff, but I cut my teeth. My first thing was a hardcore band called Seizure in 1983.
Okay.
And I was in high school, and so I was exposed. I saw them live, and it was just always like, holy fuck, these guys are a lot better than a lot of the other bands playing with them. They're from like Milwaukee, I think originally Rockford, but Milwaukee, and they came through. And I saw them on occasion, and then I just came to mind. I was just like, holy shit, we just saw him, and they basically covered that album. That first album just the other day, and I was like, what the fuck? It was just amazing. So yeah, you can look it up. It's spelled D-I, like die, D-I-E, and then Kreuzen, Kreuzen, the Kreuzen. Yeah.
Kreuzen.
And they have October Files. They've got other great things, but that was just like kind of a game changer for a lot of people going like, okay, you don't have to just play straight thrashing, screaming hardcore. There's like, you can actually have guys who know what they're doing.
Right.
They're a little more evolved somehow, and just on top of shit. So I just was always blown away. And that's, if you know, that's like all these things. So
yeah,
that's one to check out. Yeah, man.
I'm not familiar with them. I will definitely check them out.
Yeah, Norma, I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds cool.
What year approximately was it?
That was I think 84 that album came out.
So like, yeah.
And they released stuff after that. I think October Files after that was 86 and stuff. I could check the list here, but that's the one that just kind of like was holy shit, And then for me, I was exposed to bands that were starting to experiment and bring metal into the hardcore thing. And in New York there was Prong, and obviously there was Corrosion and Conformity, which I ended up joining for a little bit there. And seeing them through their many iterations and stuff, and DRI and all these other bands were like starting to embrace, post, all the metal stuff from, 70s and 80s onwards, it was a pretty cool time. So,
yeah. Very cool. Nice. Very cool. Yeah. I'll definitely check that band out. I
yeah, man.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear that. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thanks, Karl. All right. Al, what do you got for us?
Well, right. Well, my list, just like everybody else, I decided on my 5, I think, about 6:45 UK time, so not very long ago at all. It's a tough one. And it's funny that Albert should say he's got some stuff, some sort of big bands, or some stuff from big bands that weren't. I was worried you were going to pull something out. I've got one that's we'll get to that later. I'm going to get something new. But this guy called, and I'm a big fan, and he's quite a prolific producer as well as a musician. Guy called Stephen Wilson from the band Porcupine Tree, and this was one of his solo albums. Now it didn't bomb, but I think he should be. I think his solo stuff should be a lot bigger than it is. I mean, I don't know how it travels. I don't know. I'm sure you've heard of Porcupine Tree, guys, but I don't know if this is traveled. It's quite recent. It's only 2013, but it's got it's like I was trying to think of what I would describe it as, and I just started writing. It's a complex, satisfying, compelling prog epic odyssey. And it's great. It's not concept album in real terms. It kind of is. There's some themes through it, but it's not like a hardcore concept album. But it just leapt out because of the quality of the musicianship and some of the incredible complexity. However, irrespective of how complex it is, it still remains accessible if you're not just if you're not just, if you're not a muse or digging the time signatures, it's actually quite accessible as well. But the lineup is great. I mean, it's Stephen Wilson, Guthrie Govan, who's a English guy,
a maniac.
He's just crazy.
Monster.
How do you do that stuff? I mean, like,
I don't know. He's crazy. He's quite local to me. I've never actually met him. I've got friends of friends and stuff, but I live currently in a place called Colchester, which is not too far out of London, and he lives in a place called Chelmsford, which is like the next kind of city. I presume he lives in London now, but that's where that's where Guthrie comes from. On bass is a guy called Nick Beggs.
Yep.
And I'm sure everybody can remember Kajagoogoo from the 80s. That's where and listening back to Kajagoogoo, it's you kind of, as a metal head, you just dismiss them. But if you listen to Kajagoogoo now, they're a prog band with a pretty boy singer. They're absolutely fantastic. And he's playing on this, and also he busts out the Chapman stick on here as well. Which is like a crazy, I don't even know what it is. It's a science fiction time travel instrument. A guy called Adam Holzman, who's a jazz pianist, keyboard player, and he's played with Marcus Miller and Miles Davis and Anton. I mean, he's just a great player. Marco Miniman. I'm never really sure if I've got enough consonants in the pronunciation of his name, but it's kind of something like that. And he's just an astonishing drummer. A guy, Theo Travis, who is a brass and woodwind player from Soft Machine and Gong, and Alan Parsons guests on this as well. So that's like proper prog royalty, really. And it's just, I think it's just great. I don't know if anybody's actually heard this one.
Oh, yeah.
It's, if you want potentially unnecessary but actually good, sweet time signatures and just craziness, it's worth it just for Nick Begg's bass intro to the opening track. If you've heard it, it's just like, oh, what the fuck's going on here? Yeah, I think it's great. And I thought, like, when I heard it, I was like, right, this is, I mean, Stephen Wilson's a real name anyway. I mean, he's remixed. He's probably as famous for remixing Tull and Jethro Tull and a whole bunch of other artists as he is for his own stuff. But yeah, this is great, and it's got aggression in there as well, complexity, I think really subtle stuff and really in your face scary prog. Yeah, just a great one. Grabbed me the first time I heard it. I kind of, does he count? Is he an underdog? I don't know. Maybe he is. But yeah, it's one not everybody's heard. And if from what you guys are saying, I think you'd probably dig it.
Oh yeah, I love Steve Wilson. He's incredible. Yeah. It's funny when you mentioned Nick Beggs and the Kajagoogoo thing. So I follow Nick Beggs on Instagram or one of the platforms, and his daughter posted a TikTok, and she's singing
Too Shy,
and he's just sitting there shaking his head.
He's on tour in the UK at the moment. He's on tour with his daughters, the Begg sisters.
Oh, nice.
And he just stands in the back and he just plays stand-up bass, and they play acoustic guitars and sing. I haven't heard much of the stuff, but I imagine it's good.
Yeah, he's a great bass player. He's incredible. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Stephen Wilson is amazing. I love him. One of my favorites. I love him. All right. Well, I guess we circle back to number 2 with me. So I'm also going with another new wave of British heavy metal band, very underrated in my opinion, and they only had one album, and this album, the band name, it's tongue in cheek, it's very English, I think, in that sense, the humor, but I think it's a great band, and even the album cover, it's super cheesy early 80s metal. This came out in '82, and it's Split Beaver is the name of the band. And the album is When Hell Won't Have You. But I love this album. And this took me a long time to find. I've been searching for this for years. And I found it on Discogs. But the thing I like about this band, and it's nothing super original. They sound a lot like Tigers of Pantang. They're kind of going, and their singer, in fact, sounds like Jess Cox to me. But I think they're just great, and they have some really cool stuff. They have some funny stuff. I think they have a song, "Give Me Head," that would never get airplay because it's very upfront. I mean, there's no question of what they're trying to say with this song. But they got some really cool stuff, and like I said, it reminds me a lot of Tigers of Pantang. It seemed like in the early '80s, with the some of the new wave of British heavy metal bands, it was especially kind of the second tier, I guess you would say, of those bands. They were either going for Iron Maiden. They were trying to sound like Iron Maiden, like Tokyo Blade was, they sound a lot like Iron Maiden, great band, but you could tell they were trying to sound like Iron Maiden. Or you had people trying to sound like Tigers. And this band definitely was going for that. However, they do have a really cool song called Cruising that's like, and it kind of comes out, and it's the fourth song on the album, and it fits, but it doesn't sound, it's a heavy blues song, almost like Yardbirds-esque. It's harmonicas, and I mean it's a very heavy blues, and a little maybe like early Motorhead, kind of that on No Parole, that kind of vibe. But the rest of it, yeah, definitely has that Tigers of Pantang sound. But yeah, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Split Beaver, but they're a great band, and they are, you can find them, they're streaming, you can find them on like Apple and and Spotify and stuff like that. But yeah, they're worth it to check them out. What's that?
It's gonna be hard to forget that band.
Yes.
All right.
Can you Google that from work?
Yeah. Be careful Googling.
Just did so.
Like, whoa, hey, that's not a band. Yeah. But yeah, I think they're definitely worth checking out, especially if you like that early new wave of British heavy metal sound. I think they were a fun band. They just had the one album and they split up, but yeah, I think they formed in like late 70s. Had some demos, did the one album, and then it just kind of fell apart, unfortunately. But yeah, I always thought they were really underrated. Like just a real fun, just kind of straightforward. More like Tigers of Pantang, just really straightforward rock and roll. Just cool rock and roll band.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's my second pick. So, all right, Albert, you're up next.
Okay. So this will be the second and last of the more well-known bands with an underrated album, in my opinion. This one, depending on when you bought it or where you bought it, could have one name or the other. The band is Dokken. And if you bought it in Japan in late 1994, it was just a self-titled album. But if you bought it in the States or in Japan in 1995, it was called Dysfunctional. Yeah. It's the album so nice, they mixed it thrice. So this album's got a weird history to it. So Dokken broke up in 1989, and the guys went off and did various other projects. But then around 94, Don decided to work on a solo album, and he eventually got Jeff Pilson and Mick Brown involved in it, and they were really enjoying what they were coming up with and decided, okay, well, maybe we'll call it Dokken. Well, management and labels got involved and said, well, you can't call it a real Dokken album unless you get that one other guy that, everyone wants to hear. And so eventually George Lynch came into the fold, and voila, we have a Dokken reunion. And, everybody loves, anybody who's a Dokken fan anyway, loves those early albums, those first four, they're classics of the 80s. They kind of get lumped into that whole glam scene, but I think they were heavier than a lot of those bands, and I think their songwriting and musicianship was a few notches above what your Motley Crues and your Poisons were doing at the time. And so, but then when they got back together and put out this album, it sort of straddled this interesting fence because they had one foot in their 80s sound with their big vocal harmonies and shredding guitars, but then they had another foot in the 90s where their guitars sounded a little grungier. Their songs had a bit of a darker feel to them, believe it or not. And I really think that anybody who did not hear this album is really missing out. If you want to hear quite possibly the darkest Dokken album ever, just listen to the song "What Price." You will hear it and you won't even know that was a Dokken song. It's absolutely nuts. Some of Lynch's riffs on this are just super meaty. The vocal harmonies are outstanding, and I really think that the guys who really shine on this album are Pilson and Brown. I feel like on those 80s albums, they were just kind of keeping it solid, four on the floor, just really basic rhythms. But people got to hear, anyone who heard this album would hear it and realize, wow, okay, these guys know what they're doing. There's a reason why these guys are pros who, maintained careers in pretty big bands for years to come. I mean, Mick got to play in Ted Nugent for a number of years. Pilson's still out there playing in, the cover band version of Foreigner, however you want to look at that. But I mean, those guys they're absolute monsters on their instruments. And this album, I think, was the first time they really got to show it. So I can't recommend this album enough.
Check that out. Pilson does a lot of. My buddy was just out at his studio last week with Veronica Freeman doing some songs. He's doing production. He's doing right. Yep. And what a voice he's got too, man. I mean,
yeah.
Talk about like you don't know what some of these other backing guys have in their tank. You know what I mean? And it's like this guy's a virtuoso, man. He's great, and he sent me a rough mix, and it sounds like he knows what the hell he's doing behind the board really, really well too, man.
Yeah, such a massive talent. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is a good album. It was definitely overlooked, and it was such a weird time, because 94, grunge ruled the airwaves, and yeah, I mean, and that album does have some, like Too High to Fly. That's a very grungy song, and I remember, and I like it, but I remember kind of laughing when that song came out, it just the lyrical content, and I'm like, wait, these are like, Don Doc Cowboy, cocaine cowboy Don Dokken singing about how you shouldn't do drugs, and it's like, what are you talking about? Don, you're like snorting coke off hookers' asses, and now you're singing like, don't do drugs, kids. It's like okay,
Don, Twitter.
Hey, in his defense, Don was the wino of the band. The other guys were all doing the coke.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, it is a really good album. It is very that song, I think the guitar work on that song is incredible. I think George Lynch has some really sweet hooks and riffs on that. And not just that song, the whole album, but yeah, that's an interesting album. That was a really and it's kind of, I mean, I think they did a video for that song, but other than that, I don't think it really did much. Because I think the metalheads were like, what the hell is this? And then the grunge kids were like, what the hell is this? So yeah, it just didn't do really well for Dokken, apart from, I think, hardcore Dokken fans were like, oh cool, they're back together, but yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a cool album.
It was a dark few years for metal.
Yeah.
Though.
Oh yeah.
For the better or worse, whether it was a good or a bad thing, but it was a tough time. I was right in the middle of it with a power metal band in the northeast of England, and everybody's going like, yeah.
I was always curious, was it as bad as it was in the States, in England? Because I always have a vision of Europeans being more dedicated. And when I say Europeans, I am also a European. I'm an Italian American, but more dedicated to where a lot Americans like, if some of their friends don't like it, then they're like, fuck you. I'm not listening to this shit anymore.
Yeah, I think the real, true, genuine hardcore fans, but I think the measuring stick by which you could judge that is the record sales at the time and the the size of the venues that Maiden were playing. You know, let's be honest, one of the historical biggest ever bands in the world in hundreds of years. People will know who
clubs.
I mean, were, you know, they were playing big, they were playing halls, you know, they were playing big clubs. And it was just as a result of the, you know, metal just falling out of fashion, really. You know, it fell hard, and it took a long time for it to come back.
I think that,
but yeah, I think it didn't. I'm flattered that you would think not of me, but of sort of Europeans and being more, you know, maybe more loyal, and maybe they were, but yeah, it was a tough time. You know, everybody was trying to, you know, just a panic, really. But it took a little while. Maybe it got rid of a lot of stuff that maybe needed to be. Maybe should have gone. I don't know. I'm not thinking of anybody specific or anybody in particular, but it was a tough time, you know.
Yeah,
yeah, but it's just art. I mean, it sounds. I heard myself. It sounds like when I talk about
Iron Maiden. I think Iron Maiden just did 2 nights at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, I believe. And
yeah,
and you know, you're talking about an era where they were playing a place called Irving Plaza, which fits 1,200 people.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of heartbreaking, but they're back. You know what I mean? It's like, all right,
and commendable that they managed to survive through that. I mean, I know there was a little bit of ups and downs. You know, there was a few people wandered and came back, but to be able to recover from that, not many. I don't think many of those big bands.
I mean, I saw them in '96 for about maybe 80 people.
Wow.
And they were with Fear Factory, and Blaze Bayley was, you know, singing. It was a rough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. 80 people at an Iron Maiden concert. That's insane.
Yeah, it was
not
unbelievable.
Not in the late 70s. That's crazy.
I did, when I was in COC, we did 6 weeks with them on the Fear of the Dark tour. That was, you know, right before Bruce exited. And you could tell there was already like a start of that. Like the first gig was Quebec City, and we couldn't hit the stage. We were the openers. We're just joining this tour that was starting up because the biggest eddy ever they had was having a mechanical failure. Literally these levers that they were pulling, and these the stacks, the guitar stacks, the Marshall stacks, whatever it was, you know, there these bony fingers would come up over, and then these guys were like Spinal Tap working the fingers, and you know, fuck off this, whatever, you know, like, and they're like, oh, the shit's stuck, you guys can't go on, we got to work this out, man. But it was like a sold out show in Quebec, and you know, Bruce was speaking fluent French, of course, to the fucking crowd, riling them up. They're going bananas. We're like, God damn it. And then, you know, there were certain gigs, it was all arenas, but, you know, you could tell that there was, you know, they weren't on a real decline, but it was not quite where, you know, where they've been, you know, and it was just super fucking cool. And talk about a nice bunch of guys that didn't owe us shit. They gave us full PA. You know, Testament was trying to compete with them. We're like, what are you doing? You don't compete with Maiden, man. You just don't do it. You know, you're not going to pull them off the stage, you know? And we were the young bucks in our 20s, and we're watching these guys who were like seasoned veterans literally jogging for like 2 hours,
right?
You know, across this stage, you know, ramps. We're like, how the fuck I'm just getting tired watching them, you know?
But fucking Bruce does that. I saw them a little while ago. Bruce still does that now.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's astonishing.
I think he eats right and sleeps well.
He eats right. He sleeps well. He's, you know, I mean, he's a special guy. That, you know,
he exercises and shit.
Yeah.
So
all that crazy stuff. Like, what's he doing?
Excuse me for the side. I just couldn't help myself. But man,
that's cool. That's really cool.
And what a band, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nicest fucking guys in the world too. Like, unbelievable.
Very cool.
They didn't have to be nice to us.
Nice to hear that. Right on. Very cool. All right. Jerm, you are up, my friend.
All right. So these guys are a new band. Well, I guess they've been around as far as I know, about 2016. They're obscure kind of, hopefully they'll explode one day, but they're out of the San Francisco Bay Area. And if you're a fan of like stoner metal, doom metal, metal in general, like Sabbath, Soundgarden, High on Fire, these guys are amazing, and they're called the Watchers. I don't have it. All my stuff is digital copy, but they put a EP out 2016 called Sabbath Highway. Then they put another a full-length album out in 2018 called Black Abyss, and then they just put out a new album this year called Nyctophilia. And these guys are just amazing. You know, the tone. I'm a just a sucker for tone, guitar tone. And these guys, Jeremy Von Epp is the guitarist, and the tone he's getting on, especially on Black Abyss. I don't know what they were using. I assume he put out a promotional video, or demo video, I should say. That's how I found out about these guys for Mesa Boogie, and he was demoing a amp called Triple Crown 100, and he played the song Sabbath Highway through that amp, and I was just completely floored, man. I didn't know anything about the band or him at all, but the stuff he was playing was just, I mean, Sabbath and doom, and just thick and heavy and amazing stuff. So yeah, do yourself a favor and check out the Watchers, man. They're amazing, and I hope one day that they just explode, man, because they're amazing. Great band.
Nice. Yeah, I've never heard of them. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Man. Anybody else heard of them?
I haven't.
No, but I will check them out.
Yeah,
that kind of doom sort of post-Sabbath stuff seems to be really big in the UK at the moment, which is fucking great. I measure the trends in the UK in music taste by the bands that play Bloodstock, and that seems to be, it's really sort of really diverse and really broad. And my son, who's 23, is a really big music fan, and he goes to Bloodstock with me for the last sort of few years, and he will find, I'm usually quite busy, but he'll just go. He takes a couple of mates, and they just go to the small stages, the small independent stages, and just digs bands out of absolute nowhere. And he saw some you know, some really interesting grunge bands. There's one band he saw called Goblin Smoker, which is a great name for a band, but just really, really small. They're from the northeast of England. I think it's kind of a one-guy project with these mates. But I'm going to see them next Saturday. I'm traveling up to Newcastle for an Inco playing, and they're playing there. But there just seems to be a real sort of resurgence of that doom kind of stoner stuff, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All for it.
Yeah. Nice. Very cool. All right. Thanks, Jerm. Very cool. Tony, what do you got for us?
I'm going to go back to driving with to Yonkers, a place called Mad Platters, with my dear friend who departed us last year, was the bass player in Liege, Lord Matthew Vinci. And this is how we started discovering, a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal. We came home with 2 albums. I think one, I'm not going to use, one of them was Rock Until You Drop. And then I bought Jaguar Power Games.
Oh.
And that was kind of like, it's interesting listening to that. It had the fire of speed of Raven, the craziness, great Stratocaster through 70s Marshalls. And, that was like, when I was at that age, 16, 17, a Strat, where most guys wanted the Les Paul, the Strat through the Marshall was like giving me a pornographic magazine. It was like the sound that and that whole album has got some great playing, and it kind of went under the radar. It didn't really take off here. I don't know how well they did in Europe. I guess they kind of fell off, but that album had a lot of, it had the fire, the energy of Raven. It had just what really turned me on at the time. And I still listen to it. Before I had my surgery, I'd spend about 2 hours walking, and I would revisit that quite a bit, and it still withstood the test of time. So that really, that's something that affected me. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have heard that. I know that I forgot what part of England they're out of.
I think, are they Are they from Birmingham as well?
I don't remember. You
Kind
know,
of Sheffield, or
Yeah,
I think they're
up
that
north.
kind of Midlands North. I'm
really
sure.
rawness to it, and I enjoyed
Yeah,
that.
man.
That's what I liked about Raven too, just the raw energy. You know.
Yeah, I love Jaguar. I think that Power Games, that's a super underrated album. It's incredible. And it's too bad too, because their follow-up album to that, it wasn't bad, but I think they were trying to get bigger, so they kind of went down the Def Leppard path,
Yeah.
where they tried to do big production and more radio friendly, which I thought was unfortunate, because that Power Games album is really incredible. I love that album. That's one of my favorite of that era.
It kind of just went by the wayside, right? Are they still together? I don't see them at any of the festivals ever. I never
No, they split up. Jeff Cox has it's interestingly enough, Jeff Cox, the bass player, and now he's singing. I think he's the bass player. He was the bass player. Now I think he plays guitar. He has a progressive band now, progressive rock band in the vein of Steve Wilson, Porcupine Tree, called what are they called? It's really good. This Raging Silence. They're really cool. Yeah. But yeah, he's a great musician. Yeah, that band is Jaguar. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I love that band.
Yeah, and I've been doing my online sleuthing this whole time, and I was looking up Jaguar, and it turns out they're originally from Bristol.
Oh. Bristol. Okay. Yeah.
West Country. There you go.
Yeah.
Cider drinkers.
Cider drinkers. Nice. Very cool. Thank you, Tony. Awesome. That's a great album. Now I want to listen to it. All right, Chuck, what do you have for us?
So I switched gears, and this is a split out of Sweden, black metal. So it was Arcanum and Svartsen split. Buddy gave it to me back in the day on a CDR, and I have to admit, it's not your typical black metal. You know, it's still your hi-fi, you know, big chords and the like, but this one has more to offer. I always loved the Kosthogger album by Arcanum, but this one really is more gritty and raw, and there's something about it, I think, that you know, if you give it a chance, at least two songs that I would actually say stand out is Hexhammer. It's like it almost sounds like Ulver's Not in Magical album in '97. It's got like that super raw, straightforward. It's powerful tune. Also, I'm not going to pronounce it properly, but it's like Attergap or something like that. It's got these drum build-ups, blasts and choruses. Even has like those elements of like that Storm folk band, but then it's just met up with a very like raw, aggressive, powerful, you know, good black metal, you know. And that's just my opinion of it. But I definitely recommend that split, because as the discography goes, that one just kind of just disappears and nobody really talks about it.
Cool. Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard them before. I'll definitely check that out. That sounds cool.
Stuff.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because they're, you know, black metal is such a strange and interesting subgenre, and I think it sometimes gets a bad name, especially, you know, with certain, you know, parties and certain elements of the metal world.
And you know, it's like everything becomes a very genre specific thing. They have rights to complain for it. You know what I mean? It becomes very, very it plateaus off and becomes very monotone. And that doesn't really appeal to a lot of folks. And I understand that, you know, the same could be said for like that guttural, like super triggered death metal, you know, or whatever. It can plateau off, and all of a sudden people are like, did I just hear this already for the 10th time? You know, like I get it. But this one in particular, I definitely recommend it. It's good stuff.
Nice.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think that applies to almost any genre, or a lot of genres.
Sure.
I was just thinking, you know, jazz, if you're not, I mean, I think jazz is really clever and I like it, but I don't know enough about it to really to talk about it at all. And in many cases I'm listening and it's like, this is great, but did I just hear, it's funny, did I just hear this song? You know, because my ears aren't attuned to it. I'm not focused on it. Whereas I can listen to, you know, something like really progressive in the traditional prog rock kind of genre, or extreme, like Meshuggah or something, pretty extreme sort of relatively contemporary music, and I can distinguish it. And somebody who doesn't like that, I just like.
I mean, that's the whole joy of it too, is that like all of these
Yeah.
different little splintering like sub factions that we've created for ourselves, we become a fickle fan base. We say like, oh, well, we don't want to necessarily deviate too far from our strain because it'll become something else. And there's something to admire in endurance, I think. A lot of people want to say like, what's new, or there's nothing new about it, or it didn't progress enough. And no, I don't agree with that, because if you deviate too much, if you're a blues fan and all of a sudden you start throwing in harmonicas and timpani bells, all of a sudden it's not what it intended to be. And that goes for all of this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, we enjoy what we enjoy because it sounds the way it does. And whether we categorize it in this little teeny spot or make a broader, more umbrellaed, approach to it, it's still the same thing, is that don't deviate your path.
Yeah.
Remember why you started that band and keep true to what it is. Some things are greater than the sum of its parts, and actually was probably before and will exist after you. So don't do that. Don't ruin it. Leave it alone.
Which could, I mean, you could focus that lens on a lot of bands that, when grunge happened, all of a sudden wanted to write, and is it the record label saying, "Come on, guys, get rid of the Floyd Rose and get a Fender Jaguar." And a lot of bands kind of did that, and it didn't work, and it didn't work for them, And the bands like Iron Maiden, who had a dip in their career, but always sounded like Iron Maiden.
Mhm.
They've 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 progressed, but they didn't take, they didn't have just a massive shift because the
All
record
my
label
time
told
growing
them
up
to.
was like the anti Metallica. You know what I mean? Metallica became one thing and then just went. And why they did that is for what? Money? I don't know. It was a producer, perhaps. I mean, we got enough documentaries to, I don't know, explain themselves. But the reality is did they do it on their own behalf? I'm sorry, on their own behalf, or did they decide to let somebody else influence them?
Right.
We do the same thing with a lot of other bands too. I mean, you were either the Metallica or the Megadeth camp or whatever the case may be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Hey, Slade or Sweet, you got to pick.
Oh, ooh, that's
growing
tough.
up, growing up in Sweden, man, it was. I'm from Sweden originally, but I moved to the U.S. When I was 15, and lived all over the place. But one of the things in Sweden I remember in the 70s was either you were a Slade fan or a Sweet fan, and that was like, I was like, I like them both.
Yeah.
Fuck, but
That's funny. I never heard that before.
Now you know it's important. Slade and Sweet, everybody. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, throwing Quiet Riot in there too. I don't.
Yeah, they made a career. They were basically a cover band, right? I mean, their two biggest songs are fucking Slade covers. So.
Yeah.
So hey, I actually opened up for them one time, man, back in the day.
Yeah.
Nice.
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 Anyways.
Oh well.
Nice guys.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, Chuck. That's interesting. I'll have to check that band out. I don't know them. Karl, what do you have for us?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of kind of a prog thing, I'm gonna plug a family member who's actually worth plugging. It's my first cousin. It's his son, Kalle Segerborg, and he's got a band called Quantum out of Stockholm. And they just put out an album called it's called I should know this. It's called Down the Mountainside. Came out earlier this year, and they're really, really, really fucking good, actually. Nice. I was like, my cousin's wife, who's the more social than he is, and she reached out, hey, you gotta check this out. I was like, oh, okay, like, fuck, it's okay. I hope they don't suck. Somebody in my family, like, please don't suck. And then I checked it out. I was like, these guys are really, really fucking good.
Nice.
So they're called Quantum, Down the Mountainside, and they're just kind of, they're prog, jazz, but also metal, man. They kind of sometimes got a Mastodon vibe. Sometimes they go into a King Crimson thing. I don't know. They're all over. But it's cool. It works, and they're really doing a good job, and the album's really, really well produced, man. So
nice.
What can I say? Nobody probably knows about them too much. They're building a following and stuff, but I'm proud to mention them, out loud, because you're always like, oh shit, like of my cousin's kid. I'm like, but no, but it's like, I was like, fuck, they rock. You're right, So
Nice.
yeah, check them out, man.
Quantum, yeah,
yeah. They have it. They had an EP or something, a couple EPs or something before that, but that's the first full length album, Down the Mountainside. Yeah,
very cool.
Cool. I'll definitely keep an eye out for those. Do you know if they've been to the UK? Have they got to the?
I don't know. I should know this, but I don't know. I could find out. I could message her right now in Stockholm and ask.
I'd just be.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if they made many huge forays outside of. They're really young guys, early 20s. I mean, I don't know how free they are to do that or how they're set up in that sense. But I know the album sounds fucking professional as hell, and like they should do it. So.
Yeah, it's this first album. They haven't been together too long, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Cool. So check them out, man.
Yeah, I'll definitely check them out. Cool, thank you.
Sure.
Al, what do you got for us?
Okay, where are we going? Right. So a little bit like Albert, as I said, I picked a couple. I've got a bit of a cross section, and I've got a couple of big bands, huge bands in real terms, but some of the but albums that are kind of overshadowed a little bit, like you said, and I'm just going in real hard and real straight British rock legends. Thin Lizzy,
my favorite one, man.
That album
is it really?
Oh yeah, it's my favorite. Vagabonds, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, Vagabonds, but it just always to me seems it doesn't have the cowboy song on. It doesn't have it's fighting and jailbreak always seem to overshadow it. But to me, it's just, I think it's kind of, I mean, I know it predates the dual guitar thing, which is
Eric
kind of
Bell. Eric fucking Bell, man.
But Eric,
sorry, I don't mean to jump in.
It's just a blues rock masterclass,
yeah.
And it predates that kind of sound that I think people want to associate with Thin Lizzy. But for me, it's just great, It's just absolutely fantastic, slow blues. It's
unbelievable.
Just astonishing, And it was Eric Bell's last album as well.
Yep. He supposedly freaked out from a bad acid trip on New Year's Eve and didn't rebound. And felt like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And bowed out.
It's like, fucking this is what you do with your life. Come on. No, but great. It just hits me sort of right here.
Oh, man.
And again, I didn't come to Thin Lizzy till a little late, really. I mean, well, obviously I'm 56, so I was an infant, I wouldn't have got to this sort of firsthand. But I came to Thin Lizzy through, not quite through Metallica loving Thin Lizzy, but through the other bands that I liked in the sort of early 80s, and then went back. And unfortunately, I never saw them. I've seen a few. There's the Black Star Riders, they're called now, but they did tour as Lizzy. So I've seen very, very, very well connected Lizzy kind of. They're more like recitals, really. You know what I mean? I wouldn't it'd be harsh to call them a tribute band, because I've seen Scott Gorham and and so forth, and I think I've seen Brian Downey at one point in sort of Thin Lizzy bands, but I never saw Phil in it, and he's just the guy's a legend. And personally for me, other than, I mean, I love the really, really popular songs, they're great, but personally speaking, this is three guys just at the height of their powers and the height of their creative powers. You could argue it's not tremendously original. It's a blues rock album, but
amazing.
I think it is. I think it's just I think it's brutally underrated.
It is. I'll just jump in and say, this is when Phil discovered who he was. I mean, his Shades of a Blue Orphanage and the self-titled first album. This third album is where you could hear him becoming Phil, and like he's working it out, and it's just incredible. And Eric Bell's solo on the rocker, and this, the whole fucking thing just is, shreds. I don't know if it shreds, but it's, what I mean? It's like, is incredible, and it's just amazing. He stepped away. I guess
it's beautiful, yeah.
I think that's a good point you made, Karl. I think those first two albums are really good, but I think not just Phil, I think the whole band kind of figured out where they were going with this third album. And it's it's kind of that, even though it's blues, it's kind of proto metal, especially like
it is
going to creep up on you.
So my band, every band I was in that my hardcore punk band in the 80s, and I was like, I want to cover the song "Gonna Creep Up on You," but the guys in my band weren't qualified to fucking cover it. They couldn't. I was like, let's do this. Like, oh, that's really hard, man. But with Leadfoot, post COC, we actually released a version of that nothing touches the original, but we did a decent version of it that came out on a stoner rock music cartel compilation, with a bunch of other bands. But finally, we used to do it live. And then, right now, so Ron Holzner's like, Karl, maybe we should do that with Legion, since we're picking up all kinds of stuff and throwing it into the set for fun. I was like, fuck yeah, sign me up, man. Cool. I'll do Gonna Creep Up on You in a heartbeat. So thanks for bringing that album up. I don't mean to go on and on, but that is literally one of my favorite records.
Yeah.
I was a bit worried. I thought, am I getting,
no.
You can't, but no, I think it is. I think it's woefully underrated.
Absolutely.
And overshadowed by some of the ones that became more commercial, but that's
very cool. Awesome. Thank you, Al. Very cool.
Cool.
All right, number 3.
I'm going to go to the fridge and get another beer.
I was going to say 2 seconds.
I got to move the leg too. I'm going to limp over to the fridge. I'll be right back.
All right, so we have moved on to number 3. I will start it off with so I'm kind of changing gears. This is not a British band. There's actually a Spanish band. So I'm going to go with, and I'm probably going to butcher, my Spanish is not good, so I apologize to any Spanish speakers out there. I'm going with Ángeles del Infierno, and their second album, Diabolica. This right here came out in '85. Their first album is excellent as well, but I really dig this band. If you're and it's a bit of Judas Priest worship, this band, especially their early stuff, that their first 2 albums, 84 or 83 and 85. This is the 85 album. But it's just stellar. I mean, just stellar musicianship. The guitar playing is amazing. The vocalist, and I forget his name here, Juan Gallardo, just a phenomenal singer. All the lyrics are in Spanish, so I don't know what they're singing most of the time, but I just love the power and the intensity. It's emotive. But I know, like I said, I mean, it's kind of priest worship. It has a lot of priest vibe to it, especially the guitar, the dual guitar work and the hooks. But just a killer band. And they're still around, they're still going, but their first couple albums I think are just incredible. And they actually they're famous worldwide. I think just the American audience, because all of the lyrics are in Spanish, they just never really got a foothold in America, apart from probably more of the Latino communities. But they're very popular in Latin America and obviously in Spain. But yeah, if you haven't heard Ángeles del Infierno, check them out, especially if you're a Priest fan. I think you'll dig this band and this album, and it's just cool 80s artwork, with the dragon,
and it's got another lady on it.
Yeah.
It's
got a theme going.
That
checks all the boxes.
Yeah, checks all the metal boxes. Yeah. Yeah. Half naked lady, check. Dragon, check. Yeah, but they're really cool, really talented, and and I think it's unfortunate, and I think it's because it's all in Spanish that they don't have the kind of following, and obviously the kind of airplay that they would get in the States, because I think they would have been, if they had done maybe an album in English, I think they would have made a big splash here in the States, especially in the early to mid 80s. I think they would have actually done pretty well here, because they've got it. Like I said, I mean, it is priest worship, but at the same time, their music is original. They're doing their own thing. But I mean, you can tell the influence, and there's a little bit of Maiden and just kind of the whole British vibe to the album. But they're really cool. They're really fun, and it's all really dark lyrics, and You know, and their first album is called in English is The Pact with the Devil. And yeah, they're just a really fun band. They're really fun to listen to. So anyway, I don't know if anybody's listened to them before. I know Albert, you're aware of them, correct?
Yeah. So Ángeles del Infierno would be the Spanish pronunciation, which means Hell's Angels. Yeah, actually, I only became familiar with them because when I was in my short-lived Doom band, Question of Madness, the bassist slash ringleader of that project, Alfonso Polo, he had played with them as a live guitarist and a live bassist at various points in the 90s.
Nice.
So he had told me about them, and yeah, otherwise I would never have known. You know, but I do understand that they're really big in, you know, Latin America and Spain, and you know, they play in Mexico all the time. And
yeah,
they bring in some huge crowds.
Yeah, they're playing stadiums in Mexico. Yeah, they're big. Yeah, and I wasn't really aware of them until recently. Actually, I'm on a group, you know, some underground metal page, and some guy posted some album covers, and I was like, "Ooh, what's this?" You know, and it just kind of, you know, it looked cool. I thought it looked cool, and so I checked it out and listened to it. I'm like, I love this. So yeah, I immediately, you know, jumped online and like, where can I get this on vinyl? And so yeah, I grabbed their first two albums, and I've been really digging it. So anyway, so that's my number three. Albert, what do you have for us?
All right, now it's time for me to go into the obscure. So if there's one thing that people have that you may have noticed between my first two choices, the albums that I've been picking so far have been from the 90s, and the other ones are no exception. You know, it's interesting because, you know, there's been a lot of talk about how the 90s were kind of a dark time for metal, and you know, I think in the mainstream sense it was, but I think that one of the interesting things about that era is, you know, metal really went back underground, and I think as a result, I there were some incredibly amazing albums that came out in that time. And I think, you know, I guess I'm probably the baby of the group at 43, but I think having spent, you know, my teenage years throughout that decade, um, I really dug in at that point because I mean I've been listening to metal literally all my life. My earliest memories are of being a 3-year-old hearing my dad cranking Tooth and Nail by Dokken in our apartment. So
Nice.
I'm definitely a lifer with this stuff. But the 90s was when I really dug deep, and so a lot of my favorite albums are from that era. And this one in particular is really special to me. So, this band came out of Baltimore, and they did get their start in the 80s, but they didn't put out their first full-length album until 1993. The album is called The Eternal Quest, and it's a band called Mystic Force.
Hmm.
So, Mystic Force was led by this bassist named Keith Menzer, who I guess his two biggest claims to fame are being in iced earth long enough to do a photo shoot. So he's pictured on the Dark Saga album, but he didn't actually play on it. And he also started a festival in Baltimore called Power Mad, which was kind of a precursor to a lot of the festivals that go on in the States now. You know, your quote unquote true metal festivals, like your Legions of Metal in Chicago or Hell's Heroes in Houston. He was kind of doing that, you know, 15 to 20 years before everybody else in Baltimore at like a VFW hall. Totally goofy setting for it, all sorts of mishaps. It was like Spinal Tap as a festival, but so much fun. And so at any rate, Mystic Force was his primary focus through the 90s. And this album is so interesting to me because it kind of straddles the fence between your 80s US like power slash progressive metal a la Early Fates Warning, Queensryche, Crimson Glory, that sort of thing. But then going into some like more technical territory, kind of like Watchtower or early sieges even. Really just frenetic playing at times, but then reining it in, when it comes to doing the choruses. Keith Menzer himself was just an insane bassist. His drummer, Chris Lembach, was just, he had that whole like wild, perfect symmetry Mark Zonder thing going on. Um, the singer, Bobby Hicks, who's sadly no longer with us, as is Keith Menzer. So half of the band that did this album is no longer here. But Bobby Hicks was a really cool singer. He had that sort of that Jeff Tate-ish or Midnight-esque sort of vocal range, but I feel like he was even clearer in his enunciation than a lot of the singers of his ilk. You can very clearly understand everything he's singing. And yeah, I feel like this, another interesting thing about this album is, you get into a lot of progressive metal bands and, you get into, and trust me, I'm the biggest Dream Theater fanboy on the planet, but, so many of their songs, go past the 8, 9, 10 minute mark. Like, there with few exceptions, most of the albums on this song don't even make it to 4 minutes. And what they pack into such a short song is just wild. So I can't recommend it enough.
Nice. Yeah, I've never heard of them before.
Yeah, no, you're nor have I.
Yeah,
Are they still around? Or on the, you said two of the guys passed away. Yeah.
Yeah. So since Keith was the guy who ran the show, once he passed, the band was done. They only did 3 albums. And after that, they would do like the occasional festival overseas every once in a while. But yeah, they never really did much beyond 2000.
Yeah, the name sounds familiar, but it might just be because it's a pretty fucking cool name.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to. I might have. But around. But if it's possible. I've encountered them. I don't recall, but everything you've said about them, I would have liked it if I heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to check them out. That sounds cool. Thank you. Very cool.
Sure thing. Those albums fetch a pretty penny online, but I'm sure you can find them on some sort of streaming service or on YouTube or something.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Jerm, what do you have for us?
Hey, so number next for me, I don't know how they are in Europe. They may be huge, but here in the States, Victor's the only person that I personally knew of this band when I shot him a text at one time. But it's Triptychon, and their first album, Eparista Domones. I probably slaughtered that, but it's Tom Warrior, and I'm a huge Celtic Frost fan, and he can't do no wrong in my mind. But the cool part about it, I think, is that he's not afraid to take some chances and go in a little bit of different direction. Like for instance, on that album, the brutality of A Thousand Lies, that song just starts out and just destroys. And then, in the middle of Myopic Empire, the piano comes in and there's the female's voice whispering. And then the beginning of My Pain, same thing, piano and a female vocalist, and just amazing. And then they just slaughter, after that. And that, especially that first album, like I say, of course they've got several releases, but that track 1, song 1, Goetia, the first words out, besides Tom's to start it out with, but first vocal line is Satan, Savior, Father, Lord, Constructor of my world. So I was like, well, you didn't have to go any further, Tom. You had me at Satan. So Well, yeah, Triptychon, man. I like I was saying, I went and seen Goat Whore a year ago, and another guy there had a Celtic Frost shirt on, and I'm like, hey, man, just the small chat, you talk up somebody after before a show, and I said, hey, what do you think of Triptychon? And he just looked at me, and I'm like, Triptychon, and said, you got a Celtic Frost shirt on, man. It's Tom's band, and so hopefully, I turned him on to it. But yeah, Triptychon, I love them.
Did that overlap with Frost Monotheist at the time?
I think this is after Eric Martin passed away. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I can't recall the time wise or whatever.
Yeah,
but
pretty sure.
I remember thinking that Triptychon was actually, well, no offense, but like it was better than the Frost's Monotheist in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a darker,
it's
release.
Just for me, it's just built and built and built. Yeah, it's amazing. So
they were fantastic. We did Hell's Heroes with 2022, and they headlined Saturday night. They were amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, I love.
I randomly sat next to Tom G. Warrior on a flight to Europe in 1987. Just randomly got seated next to him. I was in the middle seat. Tom was at the window, and I was like, I sat down and I look over like, you're Tom G. Warrior from Celtic Frost. He goes, it's good to see so many metal fans on the plane. I was like, right on, dude. And I shoot you negative. I was in that band Seizure. It was like my and randomly this kid sitting in front of us turns around and goes, "You're Karl from Seizure." And I was like, what? And I was like, it was like I had hired a plant to make myself look cool, but I really hadn't. I was like, yeah, that's right, man. Like nobody ever heard of us, but I was like, holy shit. And he was awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
After he got off his whole kind of like, yeah, it's good to the fans, then we talked and shit. He was awesome,
Nice.
But that's just my random story. I saw them so many times back in the day. Holy fuck, they were great, man.
Oh yeah,
oh my god.
We had the pleasure of playing with Reed St. Mark.
Did he whip out his giant drumsticks?
No, he just wanted to do a couple classic sophomore tales, so we got up and jammed with them, and that was a real bucket list for me though, like
of course
grew up with all that, so we all did, so yeah, that was really cool.
That was very cool.
Bedrock, man.
Yeah, I was in the audience for that show, and at the Carolina Chainsaw Massacre Fest. That's when you're talking about, right, Chuck?
Yep. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
That was when he got up on stage with you guys, and that was incredible. Rad. That was so cool. That was so cool and he was a super nice guy too.
Nicest dude in the world.
Well, I he was sitting next to Gene from Perdition Temple at one point, and there was nobody there. Like, I just walked over. I'm like, hey, can I get a picture? And Reed's like, yeah, I'll take it. I'm like, no, I want you in it. Because he wanted to take a picture of me and Gene. I'm like, no, can you be in the picture? Like, you're a hero. In fact, can you sign this CD? Like, like, I am trying not to cry right now.
Yeah, I was wearing a Carner shirt that evening, and I was like, well, there's a deep connection between you both, obviously, because Tom had sung on the Death Cult demo, and he's like, oh, he goes, yeah, I never met those guys. I said, after all this time? He's like, no, never met them.
Really?
So be it, right? That's so bizarre, but yeah, he said that they were roadies. That's how Tom Barron and Ron Royce ended up meeting one another, is because they were both roadies for Frost. And they joined together, made this band, and Tom comes in and sings on their demo, but Reed never met any of them.
Interesting. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow. All right. Well, thank you, Jerm. Awesome choice. Yeah, great album.
Very good.
And the artwork too.
Oh,
it's incredible. All right, Tony, what do you got for us?
I guess this would be a mainstream band, but really not mainstream in the United States. I'm going back to being a little accordion player and having an older cousin that when I wanted to play music, when your parents come from Italy and migrate to, that's the instrument you play, right? It's the accordion. So like I had an older cousin who started bringing a lot of like metal stuff, heavier stuff, classic rock. They were the first wave of, with the Hendrix, and then he brings, and this is probably not their most famous album, but UFO Phenomena, which is, I got to give that, because there's the guitar player in me. Just, I think back, and this predates Eddie Van Halen, and probably why Schenker never got his just dessert in this country is because a few years later, Eddie came out, and Michael, listening to a young Michael, because, the Lonesome Crow album from the Scorpions, like I love that old school early forms of like even the Scorpions, but the UFO, I know that's like their third album, I think, right? When Schenker joined, I believe it's their third or fourth album, right? But just listening to those songs, and just that Gibson into a cranked Marshall, it was like that, and something, and I'm talking a few years after it was out already, because I was still playing the accordion. So that was like, I'm thinking of like and now I love the accordion, being an older person, but like that put the nail into my accordion playing and opened up the door for me to become a guitar player. So that album's pretty personal to me, even though I do, I was going to say Strangers in the Night, which everyone loves, but this one is like, when I talk to people about UFO, obviously Rock Bottom gets a nod, but like all the other stuff, because of its early, production and stuff, it kind of goes by the wayside, and it's pretty in my heart at all times.
Yeah. Well, and I think it feels like, maybe I'm wrong, but, and maybe it's just where I live in the West here in Utah, but it seems like UFO never really, I mean, like Lights Out was a big hit song that was on the radio, but other than that, like
they never
got any airplay around here. Like I never heard them.
It's funny because they were fucking colossal in the UK.
Yeah.
It's like those bands that never broke out of the UK bubble, or the continental European bubble, or maybe Japan, but they just never fucking broke through that fucking weird album-oriented rock fucking radio barrier.
Yeah.
Even that Strangers in the Night album, I believe there was support for Cheap Trick on those dates.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was their show. It was just, they never, last time I saw him with Vinnie Moore a few years back was in New York City at BB King's Club, which is a pretty small club, and I'm thankful, because that's the closest I've ever gotten to see and hear those songs. But yeah, they just never really ignited over here,
Yeah, and it's weird that
it's a funny thing being a Brit. the breaking America is just such seems to be such a thing, and there seems to be, I mean, a barrier. And if you break America, we've talked about Maiden quite a lot, but it's a good yardstick, and it's a good measure. When you break America and America embraces you, scream Funky Long Beach, kind of, that's where you get. But there's so many bands that I presumed at the time that UFO, for example, were huge everywhere.
I wouldn't say they ever were able to really play a giant venue on their own. I don't think they could have been, right? Am I wrong? I mean, you picture them trying to, I've never, because I've been seeing them since the 80s. I don't think they were always like opening, they were never on a headlining, and the only headlining things I've seen them at Toad's Place in New Haven, Connecticut, and anything place that barely fit 1,000 people.
I mean, not to be, too brutally honest, but here we go with the Maiden anecdote again, is because if they weren't playing Dr. Doctor before they played, most people don't even know what that is when it is playing.
Shit, man. Perth, absolutely. They're still doing that today.
Still.
I've got a friend, my friend's runs the Maiden fan club at the moment, and he puts little videos. I saw them the other day, and they're still coming on to Dr. Doctor.
Oh yeah,
crazy.
I just saw them just a few weeks back, and they still do it. But you would see that even, whether it would be back in the day when they actually deserved the time, now they've actually just been completely blown over, and you're going to have these crowds of people going like, "Who is this?
Who's this? Yeah. What's this song?
What is this?"
It's very unfortunate. It's really unfortunate.
Most Schenker albums aren't bad, While Willing and The Innocent, No Place. Like those albums are pretty good. I remember buying them, and there's a loss because of Schenker being like, one of my all-time heroes. But when you listen to the songs, it still, Phil sounds like Phil sounds amazing. It still sounds like UFO. The solos are different. You don't have Michael's brilliant stuff going on, but they were still, Chapman was playing, right? Tonka came in afterwards, right? They call him Tonka because he could drink so much that he's like a Tonka truck. You couldn't break him. Apparently, is that like the nickname? So, but like those are still some pretty good albums. I don't know what post like, maybe 2 or 3 albums after that. I think when we were on Metal Blade, they were on Metal Blade for a short-lived period in like the late 80s or 90s, I think.
Yeah, great.
Because the Scorpions have broke America. I mean, the Scorpions are a bigger band in the US.
Yeah, definitely.
You're talking about the Shanker,
Right.
I mean, if they had a Rocky Like a Hurricane, it would have balanced out, but it's like, but if you asked anybody in regards to the earlier material, it was actually, I mean, I'm very late with that stuff. And when I did discover it, like your Taken by Force and Virgin Killer and stuff like that for Scorpions, like that stuff is just as, profound as any of the UFOs as well.
Amazing. And they took those hits to break the Scorpions, but like, Virgin Killer to me is like another guitar album that was like, seems a lot of my favorite guitar players are German. So,
But they're talented. I just was at the Walk-In Fest over the summer and I saw Uli John Roth getting dinner and I stopped in the middle of dinner and I bothered him.
I have one picture with him at a NAMM show and I'm not like a star fucker or whatever they call it, but I saw him and he was in proximity. I'm like, I don't know. I just wanted to say, I said, thank you so much. Would you take a picture? He was so nice. And I felt like I hate bothering people, but how do you not go up to him?
I saw Mickey D from a distance and he had like his whole wife and family and everything. I was like, I'm not bothering you. But then I'm in one forkful and I see Uli, I see Uli over there and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going, I gotta do this, And
hey, listen, I figure he tries to communicate with fucking UFOs and shit. The least he could do is have us mere mortals, right?
Right. And his wife was having nothing doing, man. She was bent. And I caught her on a Kodak moment too. She is not having it.
Oh no.
But I don't care. I had my moment. That was it.
Awesome. I gotta see this. Picture. That's awesome. All right, thank you, Tony. Very cool choice. Chuck, what do you got for us for number 3?
So it's not new wave British heavy metal, but it's when people actually take that influence and translate it into something that's actually genuine as opposed to just copycatting it. In Solitude, and another Swedish band. So in 2011, they released The World of Flesh and the Devil, and it was their second release, I believe. And much like Mystic Force, they were a 3-album band and nothing more after the fact. And, it's great in their own ways because they didn't give themselves enough time to suck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they did 3 Paramount albums. The first one is Total Merciful Fate Worship, and it's exceptional. The second one is your like new wave British heavy metal, Angel Witch, Maiden, Tank, whatever. Like, well, Tank's not new wave, but you know what I mean. So like that time period personified in their playability and their approach to the riffing, and it's exceptional. I can't say enough about it. The Poison, Blessed, and Burn song on there, it's like Remember Tomorrow meets Revelations for Maiden.
Oh, wow.
And it even has like this guitar and bass solo at the end that is just out of control. It doesn't have to be extremely technical, but it's just done right, is the way I like to see it. The other is We Were Never Here, is another song off the album. And for Power Slaves, The Duelists, it reminds me like very much like it, but not a carbon copy. Again, that's why I think I value that album. Nice. Couldn't recommend it enough. It's totally worth listening to if you haven't, because they had a boom for a short time. And, everybody was, having them on their festivals and the like, and they were getting like decibel covers and things like that. Like they had their moment. And then they themselves decided like, no, that's it. And they just pulled the plug. And I'm kind of, I'm happy for them for doing that. Like that's noble, you know?
Yeah.
They made 3 monumental albums that can never be touched. And I think that after that boom happened, everybody forgot about them. And I'm hoping that, you know, by mentioning it here tonight that, you know, people talk about Ghost and stuff like that. And no, they don't capture that essence. These guys did.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I got to check them out. I don't think I mean, I remember them. I don't remember them. I have a vague memory of them. I need to revisit. So very cool. Thank you, Chuck. Very nice. Yeah, awesome. A great choice. Karl, what do you got for number 3 for us?
I have Holy Moses from Germany.
Oh, nice.
Finished with the Dogs. You guys know that album? It was 87. Again, a criminally underrated thrash band from Germany in 1987. They've been around a little, you know, a bit longer than that, but with a female front person, Sabina Clausen, her voice and her attack, I was just like, she's just terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, she's just like so fucking powerful. It's like, holy fuck. And this like just, you know, going up against fucking Araya and, you know, like all these fucking kick-ass fucking male fronted thrash bands, and Holy Moses is just incredible. I hear they kind of come again and they're doing their thing, but that one album is just fucking from beginning to end is unbelievable. And I'm a dipshit because I have all the shit on vinyl. I should be holding it up, and I totally forgot to bring it up to the office here. But
that's okay.
You know, I bring it up on my phone. The Finish with the Dogs and that song, Current of Death. It's just unrelenting. That's the whole thing with it. It's just you're like, what the fuck is she on? You know, it's just like
she's
jacked up lungs, and she's just fucking just screaming her ass off. It's like it's just tasteful, the powerful, just super badass. Just all elements of the album are just fucking great. It's just like a brilliant thrash record. And at the time, I was like, these guys are fucking amazing, and I can't wait to see them come to the U.S. And like, crickets, nothing, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know who the fuck turned me onto it, but like, I have that one record. It's just like, this is really a fucking important record, and yeah, there you go. But
yeah, I love Moses. They're a great band. I think very underrated. I think they never seem to break the U.S.
No. And I'm sure they had their moment, you know. I think they did the festival circuit and came through maybe Grass Pop and Hellfest or something in one of the stages or something. You know, they're not like forgotten about over on the European continent, but they didn't break through like I thought they would. They were just unbelievable, ripping band. I highly recommend them, man. Yeah. That album in particular is a gateway. Yeah, Finish with the Dogs, man. Yeah. Holy fuck, what a voice. Holy shit.
Yeah, her vocal, she's got a lot of power. And it's interesting because, you know, it was, you know, the 80s, and it's almost kind of I mean, you know, it's thrash metal, but her vocal, it's brutal. It's almost like kind of pre death metal. I mean, she's intense.
But she's actually singing. She's got pipes. It's not just a bunch of Cookie Monster kind of, you know what I mean? Yeah. No offense to that, but you know, she's got chops, man, like serious fucking vocal chops. And anyways, I can't go on enough about that record, but it's just people should know that album. You know, it's you know, if you guys want to listen to something kick ass after this, just throw that shit on, man. Yeah. No, whatever streaming service, you know.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. Al, what do you got for us?
Oh, controversial one. I'm not sure how it's going to go down with you guys.
I don't want to hear
it. There's two really, really important points about this. One, it's not metal, but that's cool. But I brought this particularly for this reason. Not only I love the album and I love the band, and I think they were woefully missed by the industry in the UK anyway. I don't know. They may have a different career in the US, but there is no guitar on this album. Yeah. You're looking
Millie
cool.
Vanilli.
Brilliant.
Ben Folds 5.
Oh, okay.
My neighbors.
Sorry?
My neighbors, Chapel Hill, man. That they got their start at the 506 down the street, like a local club.
Yeah, North Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah. Their home club is about 16,
Really?
17 minutes from here. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Oh, excellent. Well, I mean, again, a little controversial for this audience,
How
but
dare you?
okay, no. I don't mean this. I mean, who may be watching this? But man, what the fucking what a set of musicians. And there's a little story to my introduction to these guys. In the UK, there's a TV show called Later with Jules Holland. Jules Holland was the keys guy in Squeeze, and he's started. It's basically format is it's real musicians, really eclectic. Everybody plays live, really plays live. It's a BBC funded arts thing, and it's been going. It's I can't remember it not being there, but and he has. I mean, there's massive artists on there. You know, like it still goes and it's still going now. You know, it still runs now. The format's changed slightly, but it used to just be a studio with, you know, like bands set up. So you'd get four or five, but four bands set up and maybe one set up. You check it out on YouTube. It's a great show. Metallica have been on there, for example, and all sorts of, you know, it's great. But these guys came on, and you can't tell because I'm sitting down, but you know, much like Victor, I'm not a tall man. Yeah.
How dare you?
And I was a geeky guy, geeky kid at school. You know, I wasn't popular. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't on the football soccer team and stuff. And I played music, and I like art. And basically this the opening track from this album is called One Angry Dwarf and 200 Solemn Faces. And it's basically, I mean, Ben Folds is an astonishing pianist. It's worth listening just to go, fuck man, this guy's crazy. But it's basically the whole premise of the song is, you know, look at me now up here, you know, you were the guys giving me swirlies, bullying me, you know, at school. Yeah, I'm on the TV now. What are you gonna fucking do about it? And I was just that really it just captured my attention because, you know, I mean, it's in good humor, you know, it's not dark, but it's just an excellent kind of, it's a little reminiscent of uh uh Elton John, kind of Yellow Brick Road period.
A little bit of Nick Lowe.
Yeah,
a little bit of that kind of stuff. A little Elvis Costello-y shit too in there.
Yeah. That great. I mean, it's just fucking great, creative,
really good vocal hooks, man.
Yeah. Great vocal, great lyrics. It's just, you know, I don't really know what to categorize it as. It's you know, he has a really heartfelt ballad on here about his girlfriend at the time in high school getting you know, having an abortion, dark as shit, but it's a Christmas time, and it's you know, it's like it's a real tearjerker. And then an excellent song called The Battle of Who Could Care Less, and again, that one's just really upbeat, great playing, great piano. And the bass player's really the reason you don't really miss the guitar is the bass player's so fucking shit hot, you know. And he's not really playing like, I mean, you know, it's quite fashionable these days to play through kind of, you know, maybe play through like crazy effects to feed that that frequency that's missing from the guitar. He doesn't necessarily do that. He plays like with quite a dirty sound, but they're just monsters, man. Yeah, but the Battle of Who Can Care Less. The song concludes with basically, yeah, you might think you're cool now, but I've seen your high school photo and you're all dressed up like the Cure. I just think that's so cool, but just dead cool, not metal at all, but just great players and just great songs. And I don't know what happened. I think Ben Folds now works in the. I think he writes scores for the film industry or something.
He does. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
and if they book stuff, people show up, man. He can basically call his own shots, and when they book stuff around here or wherever in that circuit, people show up. I tell you, the single biggest complaint about those guys is all my stagehand friends and club owner friends going, I had to pick up that fucking piano. Fucking like a fucking grand piano or baby grand and fucking hoist it on this little stage. You're like, what the fuck? You know, come on. Bring a fucking Casio next time, motherfucker.
Come on.
Yeah. You know, so that was like a huge complaint, but no, incredible. Really, really well respected band in this state. They're like, you know, one of the guys, you know, the guys that made it out of North Carolina. Big
awesome.
Time,
I'm really pleased because I haven't seen anything in the UK for a really long time. I've got a couple of solo albums. He's got another really cool solo album called Rock the Suburbs.
Right.
And it's great. And it's got the line, it's I'm gonna rock the suburbs just like John Bon Jovi did. I'm gonna rock the suburbs except he was talented. It's awesome.
Nice.
But great, as I say, I'm really glad that there's that these guys have got. I presume they've got a career. You can't.
Oh yeah. They call their shots, man. They're okay. I promise.
Awesome.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. That album in particular did really well in the States. It went platinum.
Yeah.
So,
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Back when that was a thing.
Yeah.
How many streams, man?
Yeah. Excellent. But I love it, man. I love it. They remind me a little bit. I nearly brought Jellyfish, but I figured they're probably, you know, they're one of those bands that, how are they not fucking huge? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to mention this since you mentioned Ben Folds, Al. Have you ever heard the collaboration he did with Bill Shatner?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, in 2004, William Shatner put out an album called Has Been, and that whole album is basically written and arranged by Ben Folds, and it's a roller coaster of an album, let me tell you. There's one song on there where I just remember Shatner's just going on saying something. If there's one thing I know in life, it's that you're gonna die.
It's just like it's like really well arranged.
Yeah.
Poetry, but not actually really just just I don't know what's going on, but Shatner, man. I'd heard that.
I'm a big horror movie fan, so I had William Shatner sign my Devil's Reign from back in the day.
Oh, awesome movie.
With Tom Skerritt, and like I wish I had known that because I would have totally brought that into it. That's awesome.
Nice. Very cool. Thank you, Al. All right, number 4. So this one I'm coming stateside. This one goes back to 1987. So this band did one album. I think they had some demos, and then they did one album. And actually this album is demos. They never got big. They just did this one full-length demo album. So it's raw, it's a little rough around the edges, but I like it partly because of that. And I may be wrong, the only band member that of this band that I know that ever went anywhere, and he's still doing stuff, is and I think Tony, you might know him actually, Ken Rodate, who's in Jag Panzer. He's now the lead guitarist of Jag Panzer.
Okay, yeah.
So this is his band way back in '87 called Troll, and they did. And this is it's basically just demos. But I mean, it's a full length demo album, but it's like I said, it's pretty raw. And I love it for that reason, really. And it's called Time Tells No Lies. But it reminds me of like Omen. It's that kind of era of, kind of even though this was '87, it sounds like early '80s California traditional metal, kind of that Omen, Warlord kind of vibe.
Love that stuff. Yeah.
And it's really good, and it's a 3-piece. Like I said, I mean, it's demo, so it's raw. It's a great. I mean, it's like speed metal on the verge of being thrash metal. Like it's almost thrash metal. But it's a really cool album, and it wasn't available for a really long time. It was only available like it was like tapes, like cassette tapes is all you could ever find. And that was hard to find, but I think it's Cult Metal Classics released it on vinyl, and I think it's being distributed by uh in Europe by oh, I just forgot the name of the label that's doing a bunch of stuff now, but High Roller Records. You can
Repeat the title again. I'm sorry.
Time Tells No Lies, and the band is Troll. And it's really fun. It's just a fun rockin' album. And like I said, it's right in line with that kind of Omen, Warlord, that kind of era.
Yeah,
type
like
stuff.
battle hymns that warning of,
Yeah.
warning of danger, and like I'm all about that shit, dude.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Savage
that sounds
Grace.
great.
Yeah.
Deliver Us, right? Isn't that the Warlord?
Yeah. Yes.
The video album combo. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 All right, I'm on board.
Yeah,
I like
yeah, I
this.
think you would like this. Yeah, it's a really cool album, and yeah, like I said, it's rough, but it's now available on vinyl and CD, and it wasn't forever. But yeah, you can find it now, and again, it's not streaming. Like I've never seen it ever on any sort of platform, so it's a little tricky to hunt down. You have to buy a physical copy, but I think it's worth it. It's a really fun album. His guitar work is excellent. Yeah, just it's really cool. Yeah, really cool stuff. So yeah, Troll. Yeah, check out Troll when you get a chance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Ken Rodarte, who's now in Jagdpanzer. Yeah, that was his first band. So
I
yeah,
think they're in Europe right now. I think they just started a European tour.
yeah, they
Last
did.
I
Yeah,
spoke to Mark a couple weeks ago.
yeah, yeah. They are in Europe right now. Yeah, I think they're in Germany. Um, anyway, so that's my number four. Albert, what do you got for number four?
All right, so got a question for the group.
Oh,
You
yeah.
ever wondered what it would sound like if Tommy Keith from Tesla sang for Dream Theater? No, I didn't think you thought that ever, but it does exist in the form of a 3 album long New York band called Without Warning. So they did 3 albums between 1993 and 1999. And how this band didn't get, I would never expect them to be humongous, but I'm really surprised that in that, in that 90s prog metal era, that they didn't get, even some accolades in magazines or, getting on some more festivals and things of that nature, because the talent level in that band was so immense. Um, so they started out kind of like 1 foot in progressive rock and metal and 1 foot in like glam metal with their first album. Then they kind of shed some of those glam metal tendencies when they did their second album and started leaning a little more towards, just straight up prog, while keeping a little bit of, I guess you could say, like mid 90s extreme the band, if you will, like those sort of like vocal harmonies and tendencies towards throwing in, funk and just, weird influences in there. But then by their third album, which is the one I'm going to put here, Step Beyond, um, they just kind of went straight up prog rock with, some metal tendencies. And just, I remember the way I discovered them was through this album. I used to collect Metal Edge magazine as a teenager, and I remember being 18 and seeing just this little 2-page ad with all these albums being advertised, and this was being advertised as the sequel to Images and Words that Dream Theater never made. So naturally, I was like, I gotta find this album because Dream Theater is like they're the reason why I became a singer. Um, so I heard it and I went, this sequel to Images and Words that Dream Theater never made. I mean, it's good, but I don't know if I would give him that credit. And then I just kept listening, and every time I listened to it, it just like I noticed something else with it, and I was just like, wow, this album really grows on you. The singer Jack Bialotta, just he's got such a raspy voice, but has such an insane sense of melody too. Um, and the guitarist, Ted Berter, just he's got those sort of really cool, fluid, melodic lines, but can just rip out of nowhere, just when you least expect it. But the real secret weapon in this band is their bassist. I want to make sure I get it right. I want to say his name is Graham Thompson. Let me, did I get it right? Did I get it right? Yes, Graham Thompson. Like, the, the dude just fills the sound perfectly. It's such an amazing album. Whenever I'm just in a mood to sing, I usually bust out this album and sing along. And I mean, I've been listening to it for 25 years now, and it's still one of my go-tos when I want to warm up, or if I just feel like singing, like, yeah, I'm tired of this woman who just blew me off. I need something emotional to sing to. Like, this is what I throw on. It's such a killer album.
Nice.
So,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
not familiar with that band at all. I've never heard.
I've heard the name being right out in the New York area. I've definitely remember the band. I don't know what they sound like, but I remember the name. Definitely check them out.
Yeah,
man.
check that out. Thank you, Albert. Cool.
Yeah, sure thing.
Jerm, what's your number 4?
All right, so this is a band I'm sure everybody's heard of, but I think this is overlooked and dogged on, and I don't understand why album, but it's Motorhead's Iron Fist.
Dude.
I mean, I just that the whole album. I mean, Speed Freak, Don't Let Them Grind You Down, and America. Yeah, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
and it gets dogged on so badly, and I know it's because Ace of Spades is its big brother, but for me, I think this is every bit as good as Ace of Spades. And when I first started getting into metal, and the first Motorhead release that I bought was No Remorse, just because it was a compilation, and wasn't really familiar with Motorhead at the time. I'd heard Iron Fist, Ace of Spades, and Overkill. And so it was like those 3 albums, which one do I get? I'm going to get, No Remorse, just because of the fact that it had all 3 songs on it. So anyway, back in the day, you remember this, Victor, at Weber State, there was a radio program on Saturday nights, Friday nights. I can't remember, played metal from like 9 to midnight or 10 to midnight, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, I used to listen to that all the time because, this is pre-internet. So that was one of the only ways you're going to hear new metal or new music. And so I would call them up. Yeah, kids, we'd call the radio station and say, hey, can you play, so I'd call them, can you play Slayer? No, hang up on me. Can you play Venom? No, hang up on me. Can you play Motorhead? And they're like, well, yeah, I guess we could play some Motorhead. What do you want to hear? I'm like, well, don't play Iron Fist, don't play Ace of Spades, don't play Overkill. I don't care what you play. So, and they played Don't Need Religion. And I remember that bass line just coming through my speakers and driving into my head. And my God, I was just, this is incredible. And I'm a huge Fast Eddie Clarke fan, and I don't know if that's the reason, because his fingerprints are all over this album. If that's the reason I like it so much. And to me, I don't know if I'm crazy, but Lemmy's bass on Iron Fist just sounds a little more distorted and a little more in your face. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, I think it's severely dogged on and underrated. What an amazing album.
I think too, lyrically, it's a really clever tongue in cheek. There's a lot of a nod and a wink and a smile going on.
Exactly.
On that album, and it's not, you know what I mean. He's just having a fucking laugh, and drawing you in, and like say, check this out, kid. Wink, wink.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I always considered that either Iron Fist or Another Perfect Day were those two albums that nobody really cared about too much.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and I mean that's the only song I've ever heard that's got binoculars in the lyrics. You know, come on,
don't try rhyming that, kids.
Binoculars.
Leave it to Lemmy.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's my choice.
Nice.
That's a great one.
Great choice. Great album. Awesome. Very cool. Tony, what's your number 4?
I'm going to go with the West Coast band that, like I said, the Metal Blade stuff and Megaforce were kind of somewhat readily available when I was younger. I'd like to think of them as one of the heavier LA bands in the mid 80s. The Savage Grace EP, the Dominatrix.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Which we became friends with Christian Logan. We were on a European label with them, and a wild, vivid character to say the least. But that album had some cool stuff going on. Their album right after that was, the first couple albums were amazing. And I think then he started singing, and, more power to anyone could sing, because I can't. So, but like that EP kind of led me into the Savage Grace land, to like, I think there's some cool stuff going on there. And you got some great musicians playing on there. You got the father of Omen coming up at you, Kenny Powell was early Savage Grace. So some cool stuff happening in LA outside of the Poison and that scene. You had some guys still, after Slayer moved, like really banging it out pretty heavy. I guess you would call that speed, thrash, power metal. I don't know what you'd categorize it, but I thought it was done pretty cool on that album.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I think that's a great album. Yeah, Kenny on there, and that was it was very short-lived, like as you mentioned, but it was just kind of magic. Yeah, those first couple albums.
I don't know how many Brian pressed of those like EPs that came out back then. Maybe a few hundred. They're rare. I don't see them a lot. I don't know if they're digitized. I don't know what the status of Savage Grace is. I see them playing in Europe. I'm assuming it's Christian's band and it's a revolving door of people coming and going. I don't know. I'm just not up to date on the history, but that's definitely a game changer for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, great stuff. Yeah, I love Savage Grace. Yeah, I think that super underrated band. I think they should have been so much bigger. I think it was just weird time. It was a weird time, for bands of that, especially that kind of traditional metal, because it seems like they kind of got caught in the crossfire, maybe, with a thrash metal, where it just, they all kind of came out of the Van Halen-esque world, and they started to get big, like Jag Panzer and, a bunch of bands like that, Omen and Warlord and Savage Grace, and then thrash came and just bulldozed over everything, and I think a lot of those bands kind of got crushed under it, unfortunately. And not, I mean, they were doing great stuff. It just they couldn't get shows. They had trouble getting booked, I think, because everybody wanted thrash, or either thrash or glam. Yeah, it was kind of, and they kind of weren't any of those things. So
no, but they had elements of thrash. It's just not when they weren't going about it for 3.5 minutes straight. There's an part of a tune where it goes, and then it comes back to some melody. And I was in the same situation, and sometimes you're kind of poserish, you know what I mean, if you're not going to that next level for 4 straight minutes or something. But cool band. I thought the songs were heavy. I saw them on tour back in the day with Motorhead. We're just speaking with, and they held their own, man. They were great. They didn't sound any wimpier. They sounded just as heavy and raw and thrashy. So more power to them whatever happened to them.
What year was that?
Good question. I remember, I want to say 86 maybe, and the venue was an amazing venue that we would play with Fates Warning at, called the Hartford Agora in Hartford, Connecticut, which is at the tip of the Connecticut. So that's where Fates Warning, we've been friends with Fates our whole lives. Like they're like what we say, the Boston part of Connecticut, and where we were down in the southern tip over here. We're the Yankee fans and they're the Red Sox fans, when it comes to baseball. So.
Very cool. Thank you, Tony. Awesome. Great.
Pleasure,
Chuck, what do you have for us for number 4?
I've been going against the grain and confusing. I'm going to go to Holland now. It's a Dutch band, Fluisterwood.
Fluisterwood.
So they did an album called Langsgalg en Rond. Yeah, I don't know Dutch. But it's along a row of gallows was the, roughly translated. And it was their first release, came out in about 2003, and they were a two-piece band at the time. I don't know. I thought that they were brothers, but I don't know if they're related. No, I mean, well, brothers are related, but you know what I mean. They could not be brothers. And they did a split on a 10-inch, I believe, with Sauron. Not to be confused with the Michigan Sauron, which is actually a really cool band too. They did that Thrash Assault album. It was really good.
Yeah.
But anyways, they I think only released maybe like 2 or 3 releases, and then another one that was 3 and done. And they have violent riffing and just a consistency of drumming, like not that, again, like not that triggered or like overly produced. It's like battery, like it's powerful stuff. And we've been always like anecdoting the bass players throughout the course of all these different I don't know, like what would you say, like less known of songs. I would notice between all of us, we'd say like, oh, the elements of the bass player are really like exceptional, or this band in particular has a really great bass player. This one is no exception. They really have an amazing like the bass becomes its own song, if that makes any sense.
Right.
From a bass player perspective, you have all of your like riff, your harmonies, so on and so forth, your drum beats. You can either follow, you can Neil Murray it into oblivion, or you can actually start to articulate and move around in a particular fashion. And this one actually really does, come across as its own instrument. It's powerful stuff. There was 2 songs, The Dark Forest, which is the translation. I won't say the Dutch one because I'm already made a fool of myself. It sounds like Satyricon and Bathory and Celtic Frost and all of those good qualities that we always, love in black metal, but or at least in metal in general, but put into like this one particular Dutch style it's fucking paramount. I don't know what else to say about it.
Cool.
Check it out. Ignore it. That's up to you.
And what are they called again?
So they're called Fluisterwood.
Bless you.
There you have it.
Yeah, I've never heard
check it out if you can. It's their first release to make it easier. I won't try to pronounce the name again. So their first album.
Are they still around now? Did you say? Or?
No, they've long since been debunked. I don't know when they actually hung up the hat, but it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But,
cool. Let's check them out. Thank you. Awesome. Karl, what do you have for us for number 4?
So I'm a major I'm a friend of, but a major fan of Kyle Thomas, from Exhorder.
Oh yeah.
Just
what an amazing human being. What a great
I know
man.
he's just the nicest guy on earth, and also like super fucking talented. I hate him. Fucking awesome singing motherfucker and playing motherfucker. No, so I became aware that his band Floodgate, the album Penalty that came out, it was 96, and we were label mates. We had signed to Roadrunner. It was my first thing I did post COC with Leadfoot, signed to Roadrunner. And the reason I kind of got that interested in them is because we were sharing a producer. They're like, hey, check out this album that this guy Eli Balls produced and blah, blah, blah. We recommend him to you. We're like, sure. And I checked it out. I was like, holy fucking shit, man. And besides, Kyle just being awesome at Exhorder, now, the on again, off again singer for Trouble, the current version of Trouble, and his own projects. It's just fucking awesome, man. Just undeniable vocal delivery. Just a great album, man. I don't know what song did like kind of hype specifically, but the whole album's really, really, really strong and sounds awesome. And the guy's just a fucking great frontman and singer, man. And my local band Lie Heavy, we played with Alabama Thunder Pussy less than a year ago, and just once again, I'm just like fanboying out like in the crowd. It's like, holy fuck, this guy, man.
He's
just,
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, super
just amazing. And it's a great human being as well, you know.
He's your best friend the first time you meet him. He becomes
exactly. And he means it.
We just played back to back with them at Blades of Metal. And I went out, they were on before us, and I was watching them with the current bass player we have in Liege now is Joe DiBiase, who's on all the Fates Warning albums.
Right.
And Joe and I were like, I'm like, these guys are fuck. I'm like, I don't want to go on after these dudes.
No.
I'm over there. I went backstage, and in my comfort, I'm playing, and Kyle's on the stage just going bananas, headbanging, drinking. I'm like, wow. And then we spoke forever backstage. What a great guy. What a super talent.
And the guy has, I don't know how many things he has his hands in, but it's like, if you follow him on social media or friends with him or whatever, you check him out, it's like, what the fuck's he doing? It's like the next thing. He's got like, tribute things going on and cover things going on and like all this original stuff going on, but he's just insanely busy and I've never heard him sing one bad note ever, and playing at the same time. Sometimes not, sometimes playing. I'm like, Jesus Christ. He's just a brilliant musician. And that one album is just like, I was like, at that time, I was like, oh, Floodgate? I know Kyle. Like, of course I'll check it out. And they're like, this is a really, like, it's a great sounding thing. We think you should work with the same producer. And Floodgate was the name of that band. They had a couple things that came out, and the album Penalties, it's really tight. And he's just, I don't care what he sings. It's just fucking kick ass, man.
Yeah.
One of the nicest guys. One of the nicest guys out there, man, in the business.
Oh, yeah.
He's a good soul.
And a little bit talented. A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'd say just a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I haven't heard Floodgate. I love Exhorder, so I'll definitely.
It's different. It's not the same, but it's fucking Kyle, man.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
nice. What was the?
He could sing the phone book. It'd be okay,
Yeah. Sorry.
Which was this particular release? You said Floodgate. What again? I'm sorry. Which
the album's called Penalty.
Penalty.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And they had other stuff too. I'm not, but that's just the first time I was like, oh shit, yeah. So.
Nice. Very cool. Awesome. Thanks, Karl. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Check that out. Al, what do you have for us for number 4?
Right. For number 4, I've got another example of an album that I think is overshadowed by this artist's other albums. Again, it's a massive artist. And it's somebody that I've been a fan of since childhood, effectively. And it's From the Inside by Alice Cooper.
Yeah, great album.
And I know it's a huge selling album. We know that. But in comparison to maybe Killers or Welcome to Nightmare or something like that, I think it's a little bit overlooked. I don't know where it comes in these sales, but again, I came to this a little bit late. I mean, it's 77 release, 78 release, or something like that. I sort of found it in the kind of mid-late 80s when I was an adult, and I had a friend who said, "Oh, we'd been to see Alice Cooper on Feed My Frankenstein tour, or so Raise Your Fists and Yell, one of the 80s tours, when Kane Roberts was playing guitar, the big muscled guy." Okay. And he said, "Oh, check this out. This is great." And just within the first few bars, I found it really compelling and loved it. And I like prog then, and with prog comes the appreciation for a concept album, and this is a concept album. There's a narrative right the way through. It's great. If you don't know I'm sure you guys here probably all do, but it's the story of it's Alice Cooper's artistic representation of the time when he basically got locked up in a mental hospital to try and stop drinking, and I think it was before he discovered coke. I think it was mostly booze at the time, and it's each song pertains to somebody that he met or somebody encountered when he was in there, and it's just a an amazing album. And then a little later on, I discovered that it was a collaboration with Bernie Taupin, who was Elton John, Bernie Taupin's counterpart. And I think it elevated Alice Cooper for me personally. So, I think it's a great album, and we haven't talked very much about. We mentioned it a little bit, but I love it. I love an album sleeve. I've got CDs here because they're easier to show. But I love an album cover, and I love a gatefold, and I love something. And man, I should have got this one out just because it is just so much fun. The front cover opens out like that. It's just a single album, but it opens out, and the back cover, the doors open, and the tracks. The last track is called "We're All Crazy," and they all bust out of the Betty Ford or the mental hospital. It's a little bit of it's very reminiscent of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as well, which is great. But a little interesting piece of trivia: they'd obviously lost the original artwork, so this is an original pressing of the CD, and the CD cover is a photograph of the original album cover, and you can see the creases in the folds. So that's great. So yeah. And there you go. There's a little picture of all the characters that appear on the album. I just love it. I just love this album. I wouldn't like to think how many times I've played it. Like one of me, most played albums. But and I had the good fortune of meeting Alice Cooper. I saw him at Hammersmith Odeon a couple of weeks ago. But I met him. I had the good fortune of meeting. I got to have a little hangout with the Hollywood Vampires. I know Tommy Hendrickson, who's the musical director of the Hollywood Vampires, and to meet Alice Cooper genuinely is like, talking about fangirling. Yeah, that's an example. I held it together. I think I held my shit together. I don't think I snot bubbled or anything like that, but it was cool. That just great album. I absolutely love it.
Nice. Oh yeah, that is a brilliant album. And I agree. Yeah, I think it's very underrated. I don't even know if he plays anything from that live anymore.
I've never heard him, and I've seen him a good few times. Never heard him play anything.
Yeah, I don't think he plays anything live from that album, and has not for a long time. But very underrated album.
Are you going to see me now? I think that was that was a single that was released.
Yeah,
I think it did okay in the US then, but yeah.
There are some great Alice Cooper songs post the original band breakup. I know the bass player Dennis Dunaway, who played on all. He lives in my town.
Oh, cool.
That was for Alice Cooper fans that were into the harder stuff. Once like Flush the Fashion, all of those. I like them. A lot of my friends are like, I wimped out or wussed out, whatever they said back then. But I just thought they were great songs, man. I thought there were still a lot of good songs. I love that album. I still have the vinyl in storage. Yeah. I just thought it was I can't remember. Is that an Bob Ezrin production?
Think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, there's some cool stuff in it. Same thing. The One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest thing was like, it's like a rock version of Danny DeVito and Nicholson. It brought me back to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, man.
Yeah.
I was kind of like blown away too when they revisited Jesus Christ Superstar and John Legend did it. They had that live broadcast, and they had Alice Cooper sing the part of King Herod.
Oh,
and I was like, I didn't expect that. I was like, the only reason I tuned in, right? I was like, other than being a massive fan of like Ian Gillan and Murray Head singing on the original stuff, which is mind blowing back, early 70s. But I was like, oh yeah, John Legend's doing this, like, oh, whatever. But then they're like, yeah, fucking Alice Cooper is going to do the part of fucking King Herod. I was like, okay, I'm going to tune in.
Okay, I'm in.
I'm watching it. I'm watching it. It was badass, man. That guy, man, holy shit. Vincent.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Vincent. Nice.
Very cool. As I say, it was very brief. He could have been not interested. It's lovely to just have just a couple of seconds, just to say, like I think somebody said earlier on, to meet somebody that you kind of, you've got that you've enjoyed all your life, and just to be able to say, man, thank you for all the time you brought. I said he brought me some joy. He said, well, hopefully I bring you a little more joy tonight.
I love you. Nice. Oh, that's
Wayne's World moment, right? You get down and you're
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Funny you say that because that was also an Alice Cooper thing. That Feed My Frankenstein. That was part of that.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Nice.
Random thought. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you, Phil. Yeah. All right, we are at the end. Number 5. So my number 5 is also from 1987, as was my last album. Um, so this is yeah, kind of more traditional rock, heavy metal, hard rock and metal band that never really made it, never went anywhere, unfortunately. And I always thought that a lot of talent, really interesting band. And my presentation here is kind of twofold because one, I think they're underrated, but then I also have a rarity with them. So here is the original album cover. It's the band Tyranny. Manipulator is the name of the album. And I don't know, I don't know how to describe it exactly. I mean, it was, it was 87, and if you look at the picture, they look kind of hair metalish, lots of big hair and stuff, but it was more, more of just a real hard rock album. Uh, kind of, I guess you could, if you're going to compare it to anybody, kind of in the vein of like, I guess like Night Ranger or something like that, just, kind of, straight ahead rock and roll. However, one thing I always thought was interesting about the band was the keyboard. So Robert Mirabilio is the singer and he is also the keyboard player. And again, this was 87. And instead of doing the the contemporary modern keyboards of that time, his approach was his keyboards sound like John Lord or Ken Hensley. I mean, it has this very
Gritty.
Yeah, it sounds like an organ and it's 70s heaviness. It sounds like Deep Purple or Uriah Heep or something like that, which I thought was really cool and made them a little different than anything else that was happening at the time. And it's really unfortunate that they never really went anywhere. And they opened for people. They were an LA band and they played a lot of the clubs then and opened for big names, but just never really seemed to be able to take off. And I think they were on the verge, and then there was a car accident and everything kind of went to hell. But I kind of went off there. So as I mentioned, this is the original album cover of the band, and this is available. You can find this now pretty easily. You can actually order it directly from Robert on the Tyranny webpage. And I interviewed him a couple years back, and I didn't have that CD at the time. I have this vinyl album, this white, with a purple letter, just very plain. So when we were talking, I pulled it up and showed it to him, and he said, "Oh, cool." He's like, and I thought this was kind of the album cover. I mean, I remember seeing the other one, but I just figured, oh, this must be like a remastered or a different version of it. So I showed it to him, and he said, "Oh, that's a bootleg from Mexico." I'm like, really? Because like I bought this in California at a record store. Like I had no idea. I just saw Tyranny, like, oh, cool, Tyranny. I like Tyranny. And yeah, so I thought it was cool. So I've got this kind of rare, and I, this was from the 80s, a bootleg from the 80s. And I apologized to him, like, oh God, I'm sorry. I have this bootleg. And he's like, no, that's cool. That's cool. It's like, yeah, I didn't get any money for that, but it's cool that that's still out there. And I said, yeah, it was actually unopened when I bought it. It was brand new. It was spanking brand new, and yeah, they're a cool band. I think they're fun. They're interesting. They sound like an 80s hard rock band. But there's some interesting elements to them, and they've got some cool lyrics. For me, again, it's really those the keys that sound like a Hammond organ, which I love that sound. You don't hear that much anymore. I'm a massive John Lord fan. Ken Hensley, I love Uriah Heep, and Deep Purple. So yeah, for me, this band I always thought was really cool because they just, yeah, kind of captured, the 80s rock, but then with this nod to the 70s, to 70s hard rock too, which I thought was cool. So that's my fifth choice is Tyranny, Manipulator. All right, Albert, what do you got for us?
All right, so I saved my heaviest one for last, and this is this one, just like Without Warning, this album kind of just squeaked in at the end of the 90s. And this one is by a German band that got their start in the 80s, did 2 albums that like just kind of flew under the radar and then broke up for about a decade and got back together in the late 90s with only the original rhythm section and everybody else was brand new. They ended up getting signed to Century Media at the time and put out a string of albums with them. The second of which is the album that I first heard by them. And as soon as I did, I was like, I have to own everything by this band. And that band is Angel Dust. This album is called Bleed. You know, when I saw the album cover, I was like, I'm not sure what this is. Like, is this a death metal album? Is it thrash? What is it? And it's very, I would just say it it has a power metal sound to it, but not in the sense that, you know, a lot of people immediately think when they think of power metal. You know, it's not your Halloween, your Stradivarius. It's not that happy, like, you know, are there guitars in this sort of power metal? Nah, I can't say that about Halloween, but you know, like you hear what constitutes as power metal these days, and you know, you kind of think it has that very happy sort of sound, and I love that stuff. It has its place, but when I really want to hear power metal, I want to hear this. I want to hear stuff that sounds powerful, and Angel Dust definitely fits that bill. Um, I would say there are some elements of, say, early Sabotage there. There's definitely a Dio vibe going on at times. Just sort of updated, especially if you've ever heard any of Dio's '90s output, like Strange Highways or Angry Machines. It kind of leans in that sort of direction in terms of heaviness.
Okay.
And um, one interesting thing about them is they do have a keyboardist. The keyboardist is actually the younger brother. Well, on the album, he's the younger brother of the original bassist in the band. So the bassist was Frank Banks. Brother was Stephen Banks. And you know, a lot of times when, you know, for certain metal fans, they hear the word keyboards and they just think, you know, I don't know if this is going to work well, but this guy really knew when to fit in with the music and when to just kind of be in the background. And just the riffs are crushing. Bernd Offerman is the name of the guitarist on this album, and he's just got such a mean tone. And you know, when he's playing his rhythms, his leads are soaring. Um, the vocalist Dirk Thurish is one of my absolute favorites. He's got the kind of voice I wish I had. You know, if you want someone who can do clean, super high stuff, I'm your guy. But I've always aspired to have that like Dio-esque, you know, grit and just that power. And I've never been able to achieve that. But this guy, Dirk Thurish, absolutely does. He just sounds like an absolute monster on this album. Yeah, I really think if you ever want to hear just something that you know, if you think of power metal in a negative context, I challenge anyone who has that sort of mindset to listen to Bleed by Angel Dust. And you'll be like, okay, I do like some power metal and I want to find more like this.
Cool.
So
Angel.
that's my last recommendation.
Awesome.
I'm convinced. I'll
Yeah.
try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I haven't heard them before. I know the name, but I don't think I've ever heard them. Yeah, I'm really curious to definitely check that out. Cool. Thank you, Albert.
Sure.
All right, Jerm, what do you got for us for number 5?
Yeah, this is from a huge band, and I think it's just tragically overlooked and dogged on and just pushed aside. And I think it's one of my favorite releases of these guys, and it's Black Sabbath, Born Again.
Nice.
I mean, come on, you know. I remember, you know, again, getting into metal and trying to piece together.
Uh-oh.
know that at the time, you know, and just trying to piece everything together. And wow, you know, I mean, I was a Sabbath fan before, but then, you know, this album really, I don't know, there's just something about it. It's all like that opening song, Trashed, right? It's almost, for me, just as good as like Neon Nights. You know, I remember the first time I put Neon Nights on, I was just, I mean, I still get chills when I hear that song, but Trashed is every bit as good as Neon Nights, I think, you know. And then, you know, it was coming together of two titans of the rock and metal world, you know, with Purple and Sabbath. I was just like, my God, how can you get any better than that, you know? And you know, Tony's guitar work is just amazing. You know, that opening riff of Zero the Hero, you know, that dun 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 dun, dun, and then it just brings in this ominous, just brutal sounding, you know, it's like a black cloud coming over a village, just laying waste to everything, you know, just so cool. And then Ian's vocals, my God, you know, I mean, the end of Hotline and the song Born Again, man, they're just incredible. So, and then, you know, going back to what Al was saying, the cover. You know, I remember when I was a kid holding this, looking at it before I bought this. I mean, I was a little disturbed actually, you know, thinking that's a baby, you know.
And, a friend of mine did the cover. A friend of mine produced the cover.
Oh, really?
It's incredible, you know. And the way you know, you could walk into a record store and there's 100 albums on the wall. Right, you're not
gonna fucking know that one.
Yeah.
It's a guy called Steve Jewell,
known
as Crusher Jewell. He's a DJ. He used to be
Crusher.
Crush. Yeah, he used to be the art director of Kerrang, which is the UK's big. I'm crushing on you thing, but I'm going to message him later and say I've just been on a podcast with a bunch of guys, and there's a folklore that he was trying to get sacked because his relationship with you know was poor, but they loved it. Or I can't remember the exact story, but except Geezer Butler had said like he physically threw up when he first saw it. But I'll message Crush when I get off here. He'll be really pleased with that. But
what amazing! I mean, it's one of my favorite album covers ever. Matter of fact, it hangs on my wall right there below "Welcome to Hell" and
nice.
Above "Don't Break the Oath." You know, so
man.
Very cool.
What an amazing album! So. Black Sabbath.
I'm right there with you. That one, when that came out, being a big Deep Purple fan and a Black Sabbath fan, it was like these two worlds coming together. Like this isn't even real. This is like a dream. And then I remember seeing the interview with Ian Gillan about it all, and just his hysterical stories. You know, with the one, just the fact the way the band even became a band was they were all pissed drunk in a pub, and he talked him into joining the band. And his manager was furious. I guess he's like, "You did what?" It's like, "I signed a contract. I'm in Black." Like
again, the tale is that his manager rang him and said, "What the fuck did you do that for?" And he's like, "Oh, what did I do? What did I do? You know, did I shit in the fireplace of the pub? I don't know. What did I do?" And he's like, you fucking join Sabbath." He was like, "Oh, okay." You don't know how true the stories are. They're great stories, but
Didn't they set like Bill Ward on fire and paint him gold during that? You know, just amazing.
Man.
Yeah, it's like the old James Bond thing when they covered him in gold dust. They sprayed him with gold and they almost killed him.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Gillan never sounded the same after that album too. Like he really went for it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it changed. Yeah, his voice was different from that on out. Yeah, I remember. I did. It's funny you mentioned Al. You mentioned when he saw the album cover, he said he wanted to throw up, and then I remember that whole interview, and he said, "Yeah," and then I heard it and I wanted to throw up. And he's like, "What have I done?" Like, which I'm like, "This is great." And I remember,
it's amazing.
Yeah, I remember hearing him touring with them, and he didn't know the Black Sabbath songs. And so he had a binder, and this is before like you'd have like the monitors so you could look at the lyrics. So he just had a binder with lyrics. And he taught himself how to turn it with his foot, the pages. Well, he didn't know they use smoke machines at their shows. So he said, he's like up there, the song starts, and all of a sudden all this fog comes up, and he's like, and he just dove on the floor and like hurry and read the lyrics, and then pop back up out of the fog and sing, and then go back down in the fog and read the lyrics and pop out and sing. Like that's hysterical. So I'm sure he was, exaggerating a bit, but it was pretty entertaining. Yeah. Great album, awesome album. I love that album. That's a great album. Great choice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerm.
The remaster's a little bit better.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah,
that hair better, I mean, production wise, not taking away from the songs.
Yeah, nice. Oh, cool stuff. Awesome. All right, Tony, what do you have for us for number 5?
I'm going to go out on another guitar player, and I took a lot of heat from friends saying that these are some of the worst vocals ever put on record, but I could overlook that. Electric Sun, Earthquake was a big milestone for me too. Being one of my influences that led me down a path is Jimi Hendrix, and obviously Uli, having been with Jimi Hendrix's ex-girlfriend, once he split the Scorpions, I was intrigued of what this guy's going to do next, and he went down that path of Jimi Hendrix with his own twist on it, and I think it has some of the coolest guitar playing that I've ever heard. And Firewind came after that, which between that, I didn't know which one to pick, but Earthquake was the first one I got, and I spent a lot of time listening to that. And I think those are as underground as you get, because those things definitely did not get any airplay because it was voice, it's like something I think he kind of pulled like with the Jimi Hendrix and the Bob Dylan. It's like, this is what I got. I'm going to try and communicate. And that's what it is. But so those songs on there are just like mind-boggling for guitar playing. When I look at it, it's 78, 79, and it's still astonishing to me what that guy accomplished in the 70s. So I would put that as, an underground, not too many people. I mean, I guess if you're a guitar geek like I am, you kind of know what that is. But, I think I remember reading after he started reading some of Herman Rarebell's lyrics, that's it. I'm not playing this stuff because he's a woman, she's a man. I think that's why he originally split the Scorpions, right? After Tokyo Tapes. So that was a hunt, and it was hard to find out when it was going to come. He just went to stores and took it home, and I just shut the vocals. I'm not going to pay too much mind, and it was magical for me. It still is. I still listen to those albums. So
yeah, his guitar work. Yeah, I think magical is a good word for it. Yeah, and vocally, he was always. I struggled with his vocals, but I didn't care that much because just listen to him play guitar. It's like, who cares? He could.
You really
hire Yoko Ono. I don't care. Just play guitar.
he set the standard. For what Yngwie became to do, and now the new breed of shredders. It all starts with him. Him and Shanker, like the guys that really put the turbo to the floor and said,
I agree with that.
Did it melodically. They had a lot to say. Where some stuff gets lost for me nowadays. It's so fast. There's a sense of loss of melody, but these guys knew their blues stuff too, man. They knew how to put soul in those fast
emotion.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, so I think we've got a pretty high guitar geek count on here, but the thing with guitar, it's not a sport, it's an art. I know you play sport and you play guitar. I'm not gonna, come on, there's loads of stuff that can't. But I'll take one fucking great note, or maybe 3 if you're getting 5 maybe. No, but I'll take a couple of great notes over, a colossal number of. I mean, it's cool, it's cool. I like it. It's entertaining and so forth. But I'll take for my art. Or my perception of art, I'd much rather take a little bit of some taste and some emotion, I think.
So when learning guitar and everything, it was that you didn't want to learn scales. So if you learn the scales at 1 billion miles an hour and play them back to me.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
It's just doesn't have the same impact.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
More rocking, less wanking.
Yeah. But we all like to get fast now and again. Come on. But it's not the priority, you know what I mean? It's like seasoning, isn't it? It's like a bit of, it's not the
You sprinkle it on, you don't bucket it.
Exactly.
Smear it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Nice. Very cool. All right, thank you, Tony. Chuck, what's your number 5?
Oh, so instead of giving you obscurities now, I'm actually giving you something that would probably fit more inclined to what we all are interested in. Slaughter Extroys.
Oh,
from
nice.
my area.
So Winter Kill from 85 is exceptional beyond belief. Brent Sullivan, we've been talking about bass players, out of control. And he's actually still holding it together to this very day. Sadly, we've lost 2 band members, the drummer and the singer, Jonathan Lewis, singer. Expansive range, highs, lows. He has sustain. There's something about what he does in his performance on Winter Kill, which is just capital. He actually saved the life of a kid in Chicago during a flood, I believe.
Oh,
wow. A small anecdote, but
wow.
like this band is completely underrated, and that's why I chose it as number 1, is because not too many folks actually that I've actually spoke to in person have known it at all. I highly recommend it. So, and it's like I think they removed like certain letters only to just be cool at the time in 85, but it's Slaughter Extroys. I know.
Yeah.
Good luck spelling that. Yeah, and good luck pronouncing it. Yeah.
All right.
There's 2 really great songs on it. Winter Kill, obviously. And it's got your typical metal, pictures of home. You're going over a mountain and remembering home. But this one's like you're going over that mountain and getting chased by like warriors and axes, swords. It's very Omen-esque, like it has all those different elements. The other song is City of Citrel, I think, SIRTL, something like that. Whatever. Again, Man of War, medieval warriors, yada yada. It's awesome. I couldn't, I can't recommend it enough. So
stop it, man. I'm gonna take my shirt off in a moment. Medieval warrior shit.
Hey man,
I'm wearing a loincloth right now.
What is it? Two-fisted manly hairy metal. Yeah.
Oh, we've got that going on in Brooklyn. If you got $1,000, Man of Wars.
No assless chaps, and I'll be all right.
Yeah, Slaughter Extroyas they're definitely they're kind of like a cult legend, particularly in my area since I'm from Chicago. I just saw them play. They played their first show in. Well, no, they did the. I know they did the Blades of Steel festival. Anthony, you might have caught them there. Yep. But then they did a local show a couple weeks later, and I got to catch that. And yeah, they're just tight as ever. Brent is such a killer bassist, like you mentioned, Chuck. I've had the fortune of sharing the stage with him. He's filled in as a bassist for Fierce Atmospheres before, and he's just guy's tremendously talented.
Wow, I failed on my Corona of the 5 here. Like holy shit, you've seen him, you played with him. Fuck, dude. All right, you win.
I just lucked out. That's all. That's
badass, man.
Yeah,
and I oddly enough, some very little known trivia that I don't even know if they would know, but my dad tried out for that band before John Stewart ended up getting the spot. So yeah.
But your dad's cool, man. Really cool. My dad fucking played golf. Alice Cooper plays golf, so that's cool as well. Yeah. Awesome. What did your dad do?
My dad sang a lot in his teenage years, early 20s. He never really did anything with it.
No, but he was a singer. Yeah, so awesome though.
Yeah.
So you grew up in a household of just,
Yeah, he's the guy who turned me on to all of my early influences.
In music and stuff. Awesome. Sweet.
Yeah.
Dude, cheers to you guys. I mean, that's fucking awesome.
Thanks.
Wow, way to go.
Yeah, nice. Cheers. All right, cool. Thank you, Chuck. Very cool. Very cool choice. All right, Karl, what is your final album for the evening?
Well, somebody stole
Uh-oh.
one of mine, so I had some backups because I had a feeling that would happen. I was gonna go like, ever heard of Born Again by Black Sabbath? No, but I mean that was on my list, but I got some backups and it's just in case. But I'd say coming from the punk scene into the metal scene, one of the bands that I was just like, Algae Ward, the Saints, the Damned, and then Tank. So I know you know it, but Filth Hounds of Hades is just a fucking, Fast Eddie production or whatever, or mixing or whatever, like this that album. Discuss. It's just great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tank is super.
Turn Your Head Around.
Yeah. So Tank's just fucking seminal, awesome. They were kind of on the cusp and then had 10,000 members or something, disintegrated, didn't quite make it. They should have made it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should have been a much, much bigger band than they were, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I even covered Power of the Hunter with my old band.
Right.
The second. Sorry.
That's awesome. So so they just had this like killer fucking debut kind of thing that happened in that album. And it was a really, really cool moment where I thought like a lot of the old punks, could morph into metalheads at the same time, and it was okay. It wasn't, a tribal warfare. It was just like a cool progression where everybody understood each other, Yeah. It appeals to across the board. That's what I like about it, And that album cover is kind of classic. I think it was released in 17 different versions across all these different countries with like the blue background, the red background, always that, but I kept seeing it like, oh shit, like, wait, I already have this record, so, anyway, I know that's kind of a known one, but I had to throw some backup there because I was going to lead with, something else until Jerm ruined everything. You ruined it all, man.
No, I think Tank is a great choice because I think, I always felt they were incredibly underrated, and they don't get airplay. They don't. I mean,
it's not complex in any way, but it's fucking badass.
Oh, it's great. They're a great band. Yeah, and
they were one of the bands that just and they were around and everybody knew, but it just didn't. There's a whole bunch of bands that were around that. I mean, Trespass is a good example.
Oh yeah, great.
Because I mean, the new album last year or the year before, I know you hooked you up with this, but just these are bands that like, Hetfield. Oh, I love you guys. And it's just such a. Not everybody can make it. I think that's the problem. I think that's the thing. Not everybody. There's not enough room. But
well, what was it? Don't Walk Away was actually covered by Sodom, and that tried to carry that legacy a little bit farther, but it just didn't grab.
Take.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Yeah, these, and that's, I guess, with all of the bands we've been discussing, or a lot of the bands we've been discussing today.
They were big in Japan, right?
Yeah, big in Japan. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, just some of these bands that, just should have been so much bigger. For some reason, just they didn't quite get there for whatever reason, whatever weird fate, Cool. Oh yeah, great. Yeah, Tank. I love Tank. That's great stuff. All right, Al, you got to close us out with the.
I'm going to close you out. This one again. I mean, I actually feel a bit better about this.
More piano metal.
Sorry,
more piano metal.
No, it's not. No, it's metal. It's just. No, but Kylie, you talked about Quantum. Your cousin about, but this is a band, or it's a project. Oh, it's it's called Project Assegai, and it's Ed Box and Gary Foley from Accelerator, which was the band that I was in after Venom and that stuff, and a guy called Ronnie McLean, who was a awesome drummer, from the northeast. I think Scotland originally, but he spent his whole life in the northeast of England, and he's been in a bunch of bands. Probably the most success was a band called he was in a band called The Rain in early 90s, British thrash band. But this was released in 2018. So these guys, they all do other stuff. They all work in still. I mean, Ed is a music teacher and does loads of other stuff and does great stuff. Ronnie plays in a load of bands and he does session work as well. Gary does other stuff. He's in a he does some tribute stuff and he writes and plays. But this is just it's underrated because nobody's heard of it. I mean, they've got it's out on a German label. I can't remember the name of the label, and I don't have glasses on, so I can't see it, but we'll not get into that. But it's just it's an example of guys who've didn't make it when many of us didn't make it and what have you, but it's just a great example of contemporary traditional new wave of British heavy metal influenced metal rock, and it's an absolute riff fest, and it's just an example of guys doing great stuff. It's still out there. There are elements of sort of slightly proggy elements in it. It's just there's some astonishing playing. You've heard Victor, have you heard some of Ed's stuff? He's in a band called Vendetta after Accelerator. I'm sure I sent you some of the stuff. He's an astonishing player. He's got to be one of the one of the best British guitarists that nobody's ever heard of. I'm sure there's loads of people telling you that about the guys, but underrated in that it's happening, it's out there, and tragically very few people have heard it. So it's closing out the whole night with a shameless plug for my mates, buddies band.
Oh God!
Just, but it's an illustration. I think it's a genuine illustration that it still happens, and metal's still out there, and these guys are still, people are still doing it, and there's still an outlet, and there's still life for, not life. That sounds tragic, but these guys are still playing, still diversifying in their careers, but still passionate about what they do. And there must be an awful lot of guys that do that.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. I'll definitely have to check that out. Thank you.
And I did have some backups as well. I'm not sure if anybody else got backups because I thought I thought I was gonna lose one earlier on, but I tell you what, I've got an honorable mention, and I'm gonna get some Songs from the Elder by Kiss. What's the take on that, man? It's not as bad as everybody thinks.
It's not. I'll second
it. Took me a long time.
It's worse. It's worse than everything.
I couldn't. No, it took me a long time. It's
got some moments. So that I've always struggled with that.
Bob Ezrin again, right?
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah.
Hey, Al, things were going so well. You had to do it.
Nice. Well, guys, this has been an absolute pleasure and an honor chatting with you today. This was really fun. Thank you so much. I had a blast. Maybe like just real quick, kind of go around just like kind of what you guys have going on right now, like musically, and what you're if you want to do a quick little plug of yourself. We'll just do it kind of how I see you all on the screen real quick. Like Albert, what do you got going on right now?
Well, the latest release would have been the Core Manifold album, which so kindly did a pairing for recently. So I really appreciate that. Stuff coming out very soon will be a new Category 5 album, which I know you have gotten to hear. And I also have a project coming out. It's going to be the second album by a little studio thing that I do with a buddy of mine. It's called Empyrean Sanctum. Super proggy, super melodic, but a little bit modern sounding too. Looking forward to getting that out. So those are the two big things that are coming out. Aside from that, just doing shows with Fierce Atmospheres and working on material for an album with them. So, yep.
Very
Those
cool.
those are the big things lately.
Awesome. All right, we'll keep an eye out for those. Tony, what do you have going on?
We are almost done, like with a full Liege Lord demo for our next album. Hopefully, be out next year. It's taken us a long time. That's it, man. I'm looking forward to playing and not limping anymore in the next couple of weeks. So we've got a couple festivals booked next year. Hell's Heroes and 2 Minutes to Tulsa. I think there's some other things in the work that may happen, but hopefully we get this album out and life is grand.
Nice. Very cool. Oh, I can't wait to hear it. Very cool. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Chuck, what do you have going on right now?
We have the subsequent release for Incantation. We've been working on that for some time now. We're just finalizing things.
Nice.
Personally, I have 3 projects. Hellrune, which is a posthumous project for a late friend of ours. We actually recovered the last songs he had ever written.
Wow.
His son is 1 year old and will never know his father. So we decided to make a release to, pay tribute to him and to the last efforts he had made musically. Cool. And really cool. We all had known him personally. So that's on the works. It should be released within a year.
Cool.
There is also that was called Hellrune. Also has our live session drummer Charlie Korn playing drums for that.
Right on. We
also have Archaic Mortuary, which I'll be working with Charlie Korn as well, and also the guitarist of Ascended Dead, Ian. There's also Magnus, which is a project between a local friend of mine and I since high school, actually. Magnus being the Great, so all the songs are about Pompey the Great, William the Great, Frederick the Great, the greats. And that should be, surfacing sooner than later. Various other things with Balefire as well. We've been writing. So we're hoping to do a CD release show, and obviously other things with Incantation are bound to happen. So
nice.
I'm done.
I know you aren't able to tour because of your job a lot with Incantation. Are you going to be touring at all with the
so for the past 16 years, it's a difficult balance to do both metal and life. And sometimes life, counterbalances. It sucks. Right. I was able to do the last run in the summer. The Decapitated run coming up, I will not be part of. Okay. But there are subsequent dates to follow, and you may very well see me.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Thanks, Chuck. Karl, what do you have going on right now?
So my most recent release is completing what was supposed to be the third Skull album with what's now Legions of Doom, called The Skull. And it's me sharing vocal duties with Scott Riggers, the original St. Vitus vocalist. I sing 4 tracks, he does 3, and then there's 1 track with rest in peace Eric Wagner. Yeah. Where they built the whole song around a vocal that he tracked with acoustic guitar. They were able to wipe that guitar and build a song around it. So that album came out on TP Records this past September. I've got my local North Carolina band called Lie Heavy. We're signed to Heavy Psych Sounds, and did an album that came out called Burn to the Moon earlier this year, this past April. So the drummer had a 70% tear in his shoulder, so he just had surgery back in October. So we're writing the next album right now and giving him time to heal up, and he's chomping at the bit to get back in the studio already. We're like, dude, do your physical therapy.
Yeah.
So I got that, and then I'm also about to track 2 songs for the next the fourth Patriarchs in Black album, and I do that with Dan Lorenzo from Hades Nonfiction out of New Jersey, and Johnny Kelly, who used to be in Typo Negative and Quite Right, and played with Danzig and all kinds of people. And those two tracks that are coming out are it's with JD from Black Label Society playing bass also. So that's a kind of just a recording project only. So they do various singers, and they always have the same kind of core folks, laying down like the drums and the guitar, Dan and Johnny. So that'll be out early next year. So yeah, that's what's happening.
Very cool. I know, Al, you basically retired from music, but you occasionally play pubs, right? Are you still doing that?
Well, Venom Inc. are headlining a festival in Newcastle next week, so I'm going up to see them. So,
Tony might pull you up on stage.
You never know. Yeah, but basically, man, I'm a grown up now. Boo. I walk the dogs. No, I play all the time. I'm still kind of involved. I mean, I work. I spend a lot of time with a guy called Mark Wilkinson, who's a really prolific album artist. He most notably, he's the Marillion album artist, but he's done all of the Judas Priest albums for the last 20 years or something like that. And he's done the last couple of Iron Maiden albums, and I've been doing some stuff with him with he puts exhibitions on, and because of my connection with Bloodstock Festival, I've been the custodian for some of the Bloodstock rock and metal gallery handmade guitars built by a guy called Oliver G. Andrew, who's based in Florida, who builds a tribute guitar for the headliners of Bloodstock most years. So I've been kind of looking after those and we've had a couple of exhibitions with those on, which is pretty cool. They're pretty special.
Nice, very cool.
But somebody mentioned Goat Whore. I think it might have been Jerm earlier on. Yeah, Goat Whore are third on the bill at this festival in Newcastle next Saturday. So I'm quite looking forward to that.
Nice. Oh yeah,
I had the fortune of actually touring with those guys too, and they're just the nicest guys in the world.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome.
Nicest guys.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody so much. This was a blast. I had a great time. I hope you did too. Yeah, we'll all chat again soon, hopefully. So thank you again.
Awesome. Great to speak to everybody. Take care, man.